guys know the secret to pissing in a bottle? I know we've all. How many of you have? I actually haven't watched somebody drink their own piss. I've only listened to it.
I've done that 3 times.
Because you guys
easily
broke,
3
you guys
times.
broke the cardinal rule.
Yeah.
You have to. The diameter of the top of the bottle has to be substantially different than the one you're drinking out of.
Correct.
The mistake people will make is they'll put 2 bottles with the same diameter top.
So when you put it to your mouth, it feels
It's better. You better
different.
know the difference because otherwise you're going to swig your own piss.
Yeah.
Ambien was 2 to 3 times to blame.
Did
for
you
that.
spit it out or get it down?
I got like 3 gulps in.
Yeah.
3 gulps. The best one was my in Afghanistan. My roommate, he used to freeze water in the little crappy fridge.
Yeah.
And then he'd crack the bottle, so the frozen bottle of water.
Yep.
And then make ice cubes for his whiskey.
That makes sense.
So he would cut the bottom out of the bottles.
Right.
And I woke up one morning and we had just been in a gunfight that night, like it was super late in direct fire and stuff. So I was just smoked out of my mind. I woke up and I picked up a bottle that had the bottom cut out of it. I pissed the entire bladder onto my feet.
Yep.
In our fire base, in our room, and just sent it. It was like, fuck it. Yeah. And then just took the water bottle that was next to it, poured it on my feet, like sprinkled them off and got back in my little bunk. I was like, fuck it. Should happen to man in
taxpayer
combat.
money well spent.
It happens in combat.
Millions of dollars of training.
I was in a little known area called Spin Boldak. Do you guys ever know of that place?
Yeah, I've been through there.
It could be spicy.
It's a
shithole. It gets
shithole.
spicy. It's a shithole.
Yeah.
It's a super shithole. And I tried to figure out if a 5-gallon, one of those brown 5-gallon water jugs, you know what I'm talking about, the ones that you like carry around, they're fucking green or brown or whatever. I tried to figure out if I actually pissed 5 gallons in my room over the course of that entire rotation.
You were just filling that thing
I
up.
was trying to fill it up. It was gross.
Disgusting.
It was so gross.
Like I
It was
almost
so gross.
dry heaved just now.
Yeah. It was so
I know
gross.
that smell.
Yeah,
I know the taste.
It's like
You would
ammonia.
cap it in between, right?
Huh?
You would. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I'd have to cap it, but dude, towards
When
the
you
end,
uncapped
you're like,
God damn.
and but I'm not a quitter. I'm just not a quitter. So I tried.
It's kind of like beer because it's fermented. Like it's the.
Oh man!
But I
I'll
know
tell you
exactly what it is.
The guy coming into the hooch after me, I can't even imagine what he thought.
What?
Did you pass down the information of what was in there? Or
Absolutely
did you
not.
I was going to say you
Absolutely
leave it. That's
not.
the move. You
yeah,
leave
yeah,
it
yeah.
and don't address
yeah,
it.
you don't.
Then they use it as a real water jug, and then just
they just rinse it out. Everybody thought we were talking about this earlier, which is because we were talking about the shirt, right? The tiger stripe Hawaiian
sog,
shirt. Yeah. It's not serious. It's not meant to be a serious shirt. It's like everybody has this like serious tone obviously out there because everybody's like a really serious tough guy. Everybody, right?
Are they though?
Well, on the internet, that I like to call them is like Twitter tough guys, right? But this is not a serious shirt, and I'm not defending it in any nature. I'm just saying like it's meant just to be a fucking fun, stupid shirt because I like fun, stupid shit. And we were talking about all the fun, stupid shit, and literally, if people, people shouldn't take me literally. They shouldn't take you literally, unless we're very specific. Like, hey, I really mean this. Yeah. Outside of that, like, I never get too serious about jack or shit. I mean, truly don't.
I don't think you could navigate your way through life if you took everything seriously.
No.
And just to double down on what you're saying, it would be unwise for people to take literally what I say very often, because I will say inappropriate things that could be construed as rude,
right,
inappropriate, mean.
Is it the military though? Is that what, like, when you've seen the worst side of everything?
But you have to put it in a context too. Like if I'm looking directly at someone like, hey, you should go find every dick between here and Kentucky and line them up and suck them.
Yeah.
Obviously I'm not being serious. And it's like, if I have a serious delivery, you probably shouldn't listen to me.
No. And the other thing is that's not logistically possible. Like, so if they're
it's
like, hey,
logistically improbable. I think I could actually make that happen, but
Well,
The
you
dick
have to have a
thing?
willing
Oh, yeah.
participant,
Yeah,
and
that's
then
easy.
you also have to define:
That
is it
business
straight
plan's-
line? Is it an area? Like what
Tip
type
to
of
tip,
swath?
tip to tail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this is like there's a lot that needs to go into the planning of this just to even justify what the commander's intent would be.
We should whiteboard that right
Yeah, we
after
should-
this.
we should
just as a
absolutely-
practice business development.
I mean, it's going to take a lot of participation, but maybe that's what we need to bring our country together more
Yeah.
as opposed to apart.
We should all whiteboard sucking dicks from here to where'd you say Tennessee or Kentucky?
I usually
Whatever.
will say, yeah, it varies. Usually I say Kentucky. I don't know why. I don't know anybody
Right.
from Kentucky. I don't know if I've ever been there. Or I'll say between wherever you are and the Mississippi River.
Yeah,
Those two resonate with me.
yeah. But if you
I have no
think
idea
about
why.
it, Mississippi River is long. That's
is.
one of the parts where you'd have to define like where am I going? You know, 'cause-
100%.
It does arc out to the east in some spots.
because if you told me that was something I had to do, I would go as far north as I could because obviously the population starts to get thinner, so there would be less work, and
This is true.
and it's going to be flatter. I think it would be easier, drive, straight line distance.
If you started that one in San Diego, it'd take you a long
I could
time.
draw
just
pictures
get
to
out of
this
San
whole
Diego.
discussion.
Seriously, if
We
you're
need graphics.
working your way through the south,
Wow.
over there, like you got a lot
Yeah.
of crazy shit you got to get through.
I'm sweating profusely
San-
right now.
San Diego and LA counties got like 28 million people.
I know.
It's going to be a long. You pack a lunch.
Ugh.
You're going to be eddied out for a while. I need to get some miles under me. Like I got to get going. So
Yeah,
like,
the northern latitudes would be better on that one.
you'd have to. Yeah.
You just came from San Diego, right?
Mhm.
What do you think about that place now?
Well, so let me see. I lived there for probably 15 years. No, yes. 'Cause
Oh, really?
A little bit of time when I was out of the military too. I didn't spend enough time there to get a true sense of how they are, how life is going on in the pandemic era.
Yeah.
The fact that I still have to
Right.
use that
Yeah.
term is insane. What I will say though is I feel like in a lot of the more densely populated areas that there is an underlying sense of uncertainty and fear, which I don't feel where I live. And maybe because it's so much smaller, maybe because
Right.
people know better. No, not know better. They know people better, and maybe because it's a little bit more spread out. But I watch people, you're walking down the sidewalk and they'll take a big arc around you.
So
Or
weird.
they'll intentionally try to create that space and distance. And it's just something that I'm not used to seeing where I live.
Yeah.
So it's different in that respect, but I wasn't there long enough to really get a sense of how the businesses are doing.
Yeah.
So-
When I did Jocko's podcast a few months ago, I had dinner with a couple friends on beachside, and it was like a seafood restaurant where you eat outside.
Mhm.
And eating outside for San Diego, I think county, that's how they got through a lot of the stuff because they were open to it versus some places
Right.
where like we're not doing anything.
Also beautiful weather year round. So it was
Dude,
kind of their jam before.
I flew
Yeah.
from here, it was like 89 degrees. When I landed there, it was like 72. I was like,
Right.
what? And I was like, dude, this weather is amazing. But I was eating a lobster roll because I like those little lobster
Yeah,
rolls.
you do.
And a naked dude jumped the fence,
How naked?
like butt ass naked,
Wow, no shoes.
and grabbed somebody's like lobster roll and took off running. And then a helicopter was tracking him.
Right.
There was like cops that showed up, EMS, like a whole, and there's
Over a
families,
lobster
there's
roll?
kids everywhere over
I was
a
going to
lobster
say,
roll.
I'm just thinking about
Over a lobster
the
roll.
actual cost to taxpayer dollars for this lobster theft.
Yeah.
What do you
That's
think
just
comes
snatch and
over?
grab.
What do you think comes over the radio to the helo? It's like, listen, we got a naked guy, a hopping fence stealing lobster rolls. Spin the blades. Let's go. Let's get on
That's
this guy.
expensive. That's
It's
like
expensive.
a misdemeanor at a
If
minimum.
you were on the receiving end of that call, would you believe it was real?
No, but I would absolutely spin the
What if
bird
it was
at that.
your
Fuck
lobster
yeah, let's
roll?
go get
Sure.
that naked guy.
Would you have defended your life if that was your lobster roll?
Yeah.
I would have, dude.
Yeah.
My like food for me.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
a gifter and share, but if somebody
Yeah.
just snatched shit off my plate,
You guys aren't thinking about this right. The man was nude. So do you
Yeah.
really want to get into it with the nude man over a lobster roll? Maybe.
yeah,
Only
yeah.
if he has an erection. Because
And then you would just
I
take
want
the-
this to be an intimate experience for
I'm
both
being
of
serious
us.
right now. So
There's-
make a straight face.
naked people out doing crazy
That's-
shit. I will let them do that. I'm not getting involved in that.
No, I'm not getting involved with because you know what's on board there. Like all the HEPs, like that the HEP rainbow,
Yep.
this is like fentanyl and crack and everything else that how much shit do they got on board and how many different weird diseases
All of them.
we'll just call them all.
Yeah.
So yeah, like there's not a lot of like pushback from my perspective. I had a guy in front of my house a few years ago. I used to live right across the street from Liberty Park downtown, and he was naked with a tennis racket, just like walking down the sidewalk.
There's a level of crazy when the clothes come off.
Yeah,
In my mind, it's with the clothes on, I will tolerate much less. Clothes off, it's like I'm out.
I'm out. I actually went outside. I used to have this little MPX that I put next to the door because it was kind of a shady little neighborhood. And I went outside. I just had it right behind me. I was like, "Hey, bro, you headed to Wimbledon?" He didn't respond for some reason. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was super funny.
A better than not chance he didn't understand the reference.
I don't know if he could understand English, how high he was, but he was definitely in.
This is Salt Lake City?
Yeah, right across from Liberty Park in Salt Lake City.
That's why I don't live there.
That was all the time. Like,
yeah,
the Liberty Park downtown, Pioneer Park, they used to have a really significant drug and homeless problem.
Yeah.
So you'd see the whole, all the things that go along with that, all the fun and flavor that goes along with that. Yeah. And my daughter and I used to take her out there, and she would ride her bike around the park with me, and we'd cruise around. And then one day, we were out there and we were playing, and like they used to have, like, or they still do, big rock sculptures and bushes and stuff. And she's like, "Oh, a bunch of balloons." And I was like, "Don't touch them. Don't touch those.
Oh God.
Don't touch those balloons," because she's like, there's a bunch of little balloons laying around. And I was like, let's not play in this area.
Did Salt Lake City clean it up?
They do. I think what happens is it kind of ebbs and flows, right? So they've got to push, and it's kind of like once you have an object of mass that you can't really distribute any of the mass, you just kind of push it from here to there, right? It's like it's like sweeping your floor without a dustpan. You just like push it over here, and then you push it over there, and you push it over here. So cops will go through a park, they'll push them out, they'll go somewhere else, build a tent village somewhere else. I don't know exactly where they always go. They kind of rotate around.
They're going to have to be seasonal because of the weather. They're probably going to have to go indoors in the winter months. The reason I asked is I was just in LA. And your comment about people acting in that way, it was all over the place.
It was all over.
It was, I can't say it was all over, but there was very densely populated areas where it's at a point that I don't know that it could be fixed, because I'll hear people talking about the homeless problem in, Southern California specifically, because the weather's awesome. Even where I grew up in Santa Cruz, there's huge, and I mean huge, encampments. And by encampment, I'm talking structures, almost like the economy, like there's stuff parceled out. They're not going anywhere.
Right.
And once it gets to that level, how do you fix that? Like, I don't know how you unwind that once it gets to that tipping point.
I don't know. I think, and I've been trying to figure out, I haven't spent a significant amount of time unpacking this, but we might as well talk about things that we don't really know a lot lot as if we do. I think that's pretty.
Pretending's fun.
Pretending's great. Yeah, that's America. That's it's America. Let's talk about things we don't understand with very
Make
passionate. Some shit up. Always wrong, never in doubt. That's what I like to say.
That is actually a spectacular T-shirt and bumper sticker.
Always wrong, never in doubt.
Down right now. Damn, that on my
$1 million idea.
Right. But what I was thinking about this, because there was this documentary or docuseries, not a documentary, and who knows how dramatized it was, but it was about the opioid crisis and how the pharmaceutical industry that was responsible for that is like Purdue, I believe, and they settled for billions of dollars. But which
is a fraction of what they actually
fraction of a fraction, right? These motherfuckers aren't going to starve. They're like, oh my God, I got to pay all this money. Yeah, you made like 30, so you still have like 28 billion left in your Swiss bank accounts. And I kept thinking about it because I could not get it out of my mind where there was an opioid that was proven to be harmful. And I'm not discouraging everybody, because there are people that need them at times, right? But they were pushing them so hard through their drug reps and marketing. And then they built this entire network and system around nonprofits and false information. And then they were addicting people.
Mhm.
And
Knowing
of
it was
course,
addictive. Yeah.
knowing it was addictive, and they were convicted of this. So in my mind, you would think, wouldn't you have to take all that back? Like if the entirety of your business model is built on a falsehood or false pretenses, wouldn't you have to take that back? But I've always struggled with trying to figure out why the homeless issue is so significant. And I think it's significantly worse now that I'm an adult, because you guys grew up in these places. Like, we never saw homeless people, man. There's like a homeless guy where I grew up.
One dude.
I was
One
gonna say
dude.
exactly the same
One
thing. He
guy.
pushed a shopping cart down the same pathway
Yep.
that I would
Yeah.
see him all the time.
Wool trench coat, likely.
Like we
Same dude.
same dude.
Yeah.
And now there's like 3, I think the top 10, 3, San Jose, Los Angeles, San Francisco are the largest populations outside of New York of
Right.
homeless.
But
It's
it
crazy.
has to trend line with
Policy.
the opioid.
And yeah,
Policy and weather too, though.
yeah, for sure. That's why everybody migrates.
I mean, if you want to be homeless in Montana, you need to go to a sporting goods store
right.
because you will die
Yeah.
in the winter
You'll get eaten by
after you die.
something.
Yeah.
Someone.
A lot of the things that would eat you are also sleeping, though.
Right. That's fair. In the winter, you're
Yeah.
not. Yeah. Well, it's the same here. It gets really fucking cold.
That's what I'm saying. Well, they move around, and then I
Mhm.
think they'll land in places. I think the policies, though,
Yeah.
of I've heard a variety, everything from put them into hotels, as much support is necessary. You can camp wherever you want to, and we're not going to that. And I think that's what's getting people. Joe was talking about it in Austin. They used to have a policy where you couldn't ask them to move; they could camp wherever they want to.
Yeah.
And
It's,
I
it's
think Austin,
domicile. Yeah.
I think Austin unwound that though, and he was
Mhm.
saying that it had made a huge difference. But the volume of people, when we were driving, I wasn't looking at the odometer, but I would guesstimate 1 to 2 miles stretch, both sides, with no more than 4 feet in between tents, piles,
Oh yeah.
miles.
That's not good.
No, but what I was thinking about was the trend line directly associated with opioid abuse and prescription in the United States. I wonder if that is correlated directly
100%.
with homelessness.
Yeah, it's addiction. I mean,
Probably.
most of them are on the streets because of addiction. So they're
Yeah.
addicted to something.
Something. And then they move into
Yeah.
other things.
Yeah.
like-
And then their life is
Fentanyl or-
controlled by that
Yeah.
addiction.
because I think the lion's share of it is addiction and mental health, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes those things go hand in hand. But
It's a classic pairing.
addiction and mental health, because it's strange to me that these cities or the municipalities are so, I guess, incompetent in understanding the problem, because we see it all the time
Are they?
here.
Are they?
I think they are, because
I
they're
think
like,
they
we just
understand
need to
the problem.
build more structures so we can house more homeless people. And you're like, or like you could go out and figure out exactly who they are.
I think
Because-
they understand the problem, and I think that they
Just
know.
using it.
I think that they know that the solutions that they propose
Mm-hmm.
are probably a long-term strategy for defeat,
Right.
but it'll get them reelected.
Well, that's most of the rhetoric.
So, what would you say is the most violent city in the U.S.? What would your guys' guess be?
The most violent would probably be Chicago.
I think that's my
Yeah.
guess too. I think the people in leadership in Chicago completely understand the level of violence,
Right.
and I think they probably understand the steps that they could take that might actually decrease that. And my non-professional, not educated in that world opinion would be it's not defunding the police, it's actually having more law enforcement around.
Yeah.
That's not the path that they're taking, and I don't think that's an accident. I think the people in charge know what it is that they're doing, but I think that they're telling time in a matter of seconds as opposed to days, months, years in long-term approach, because it gets them reelected.
Right.
Yeah, because you could fix the problem. I mean, it's very, there's a lot of metrics, a lot of data, and it could be very analytical as like your deliberate approach to fixing that. The neighborhood of Austin in Chicago, the Chicago crime rate across the global war on terror in its worst years, which were the weird years that we fought in it, there were more people killed in Chicago than there were in Iraq in combat. And when you look at that metric, you're like, oh, there's a website called something Jackass. I mean, it's Googleable, but it tracks all the data from every person who's shot and killed, even where they're shot on their body and killed in Chicago. And
that would be a fascinating read.
Dude, it's amazing. It's an amazing data hub for showing what's wrong with inner city America where nobody's paying attention.
Right.
And, I post on it periodically where I'm like, guys, we're talking about a mass shooting where 3 people were killed, and it's in narratives and being, boasted and amplified because it fits the narrative.
Right.
And you got 7 people at the same time period last night that were killed, that were murdered,
right.
that were all black.
Right.
And it was all black on black crime, but nobody wants to go there. And that the whole racial thing is again that policy driven mindset where we have to keep the same narrative, because if it seems like we're struggling always,
right,
then there's always a reason to resurge the network. Like, oh, you got a bad team, you got a new commander who's coming in. That new commander is going to save the world. He gets put in that position. He makes some changes, shuffles some shit around, leaves, and then the team's still screwed up. Right. And the only way to fix that is like an informal leadership approach where somebody on the team goes, what the fuck are we doing?
Right.
And then fixes it internally. But politicians are just that commander or that temporary leadership who's looking for that OER bullet. I don't mean to associate with just officers. It's just a problem.
What does OER mean?
Officer evaluation report. So they're like looking for the headline.
Fit rep. Fitness reports. Has nothing to do with your fitness, though, just for clarity.
Oh, is that the Navy version of it?
Fit rep. That's good. It's interesting and ironic that the Navy would call that a fitness report, because there's only like one group of people in the Navy that are semi-fit.
Yeah, the boat guys, right?
The boat guys are special.
Yeah, an argument can be made that there's 0 groups in the Navy that are truly fit. I know some SEALs that are pushing PSI on their belt. Hard PSI.
Yeah.
50,
Can you
60.
get away with that?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Of course, because you know exactly what it's tied to. A rank.
I've seen it a few times. I've seen a couple of chubby SEAls, and that's not normal.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, green beignets are real too. All right, Meal Team 6.
Hey, buddy.
Fucking gravy seals. That shit's
Gravy
real.
seals.
Slow and fat, SF.
Yeah.
That's what it's slow and fat. I've seen a few
Just
of those
call
guys.
them what I do. Green beignets. All right.
It's always interesting. Like I was cruising around some SF forums the other day.
Were you?
Yeah,
I feel
because
like
you trolling? Were you leaving
idea.
comments?
No. I mean, I wasn't trolling. I was just like talking to guys because they were talking about some misinformation out there, and I was like, "Hey guys, I'm in this group. I've been here.
That's so unhealthy. Though.
I've been here since like 2005." In this,
they didn't know you were in the group.
No, and I was like, "Hey, I'm right here."
That's actually the best. That's the
you
best
guys want to
approach.
ask me shit? Like I'm right here. And,
I started this group, guys. I'm right here.
I'm like, I'm in the group.
awesome.
There's only like 5. Like, if you guys want to ask me some shit, like, go for it. Like, let's fire it up.
Yeah.
Like, and it's kind of funny because like I saw a couple of guys commenting, and I was like, it's so funny. Like I don't want to like discredit anyone, but I'll just say what the fuck I think. It's like, motherfucker, like you didn't carry a fucking gun in combat. Like shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
like it's like, dude, what are you talking about?
That's the start point to have a place at the table.
Yeah, like maybe it's timing, right? I get it. Like I get it, but it's like, man, you don't rate. Like you don't rate in this community if you're gonna like run your fucking suck and you don't have a fucking CIB.
Yeah,
like I'll listen to you if you've been fucking in the box a ton of times. I'll be like, fucking hey, man. Like
if you got a decade of war,
I got fucking respect for you. But dude, come on, man, 20 years of war.
Yeah, and
you've been ducking in the fucking mommy's basement or where the fuck you been? Like, come on, dude. Like that ain't cool. Like if you got a green beret on your head and there was no reason you weren't physically qualified to rotate into the box in the last 20 years and you just magically don't have shit.
There's a reason. That's deliberate.
Come on, man. Like you come on.
Question for you guys about the Green Beret community. Do you find, so there's online communities for SEALs as well.
Yeah.
And in the SEAL community, active duty, there's a lot of talk about the brotherhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the enlisted mafia, which is actually something that I completely support because I was part of it, and it actually is how the sausage is made.
Right.
You get out and you do something that is public.
Yeah.
With the best of your intentions. Do you guys find, and obviously this would be anecdotal off your personal experience, do you find the community at large to be supportive Or do they generally take a negative approach to people having success beyond that community in a public spotlight? Because from the SEAL community, I don't want to say that it's oftentimes negative, but goddamn, it feels like that a lot. It's almost as if you find success beyond and have any association or link to the community that you came from. It's just like, fuck that guy. Yeah.
What?
And that might be a slight.
No. I think it's a common human thing, right? It's like jealousy, envy, and greed, right? Those are like the three driving factors, and I think you and I talked about that. But we heard it, and if you think back to when you were in, you would hear it, and you can hear the same type of chatter because guys would be like, well, "Fuck that guy! Why did he get a Halo slot?" Or "Fuck that guy! Why did he get that, that gig?" Or he's going to be sheep dipped, or like, and guys would be like, "Fuck that guy!" Like that self-serving, like, and you're like, there's a lot of fucking Halo slots, man. Like, it's not like this is gonna be the last one to ever come around. But they went, instead of being like, "Dude, that's rad.
Yeah,
you're going, like, you got a slot. That's epic. Good
some
for
people
you.
would
Let's
do that.
go."
Some
people.
I'm gonna say it's
rare.
a smaller piece of the
Rare.
pie.
Small.
Yeah.
It was almost like they're so competitive, even, and you can speak to it way better than I can, but between, ODAs and companies, battalions and then group, but then they're competitive even inside the ODA because it'd be like, I can't fucking believe, like, you can give that to Charlie, or whatever thing. And then instead of like, and that's actually to the detriment of the entire regimental psychology, that they aren't teaching people to celebrate the success for one another, because they have to start that really early. Instead of trying to mudsuck and motherfuck and put people down, they need to start to figure out how to rebuild positive psychology early, because once you're through the fucking grinder and on the team, should be about, let's fucking go. Like, one team, one fight, big successful mission, let's celebrate each other. And then the guys with that attitude, they got to start flushing them out of the fucking toilet, because those are the guys that carry the fucking charter forward, and they become a sergeant major or wherever, and they directly contribute to an overall negative psychology. And I keep telling people this all the time. It's like, psychology is more infectious than fucking the flu or, or the moronic strain or whatever the fuck it is now. But it's like, you can grind people into moon dust when you're trying to figure out whether or not they're going to be on the team. But then after, you kind of got to say, like, guys, we're fucking moving in one direction. I don't know if you have a wide variety of experience in the military.
I fired the only guys that I have fired through my career were toxic guys that likely, in the same way that a guy got a sniper slot or won a sniper comp, and they were envious and jealous, that are the same guys who are naysayers against guys who are stepping outside, which I think stepping outside the military is the true singleton mission that we all wanted.
Right.
But you never really got. And then you get out because you have so many opportunities and so much navigation for like this mission set. It's like, you could do whatever the fuck you want. You have no constraint. And guys, because they conform to that pattern of life where they're comfortable, they're in routines, they think they're a singleton until they hit the civilian world. And so what they'll do is just put down everybody who's successful, who's adapting to that environment and then succeeding. They'll be the GS employee for another 20-year round. They'll be the tactical instructor teaching 20 more years on a flat range, and they'll naysay and talk shit about everybody around them. And that's a thing that I think we can't, like you said, it's behavior. We won't get away from it. But I do feel like that from talking to guys, like, I get feedback where guys are like, "You guys are doing awesome shit," or guys from the regiment talking to me and saying, "Hey, I'm an active duty third group guy, unit guy, whatever it is." And that's good affirmation. But I have heard from the SEAL community about, especially guys from Dam Neck, guys who have stepped outside the box, where they're like, "Fuck that guy." Yeah. Like, what? That dude's like a fucking amazing dude. Like, Andy Stumpf's like a great guy. like you're talking shit about him, and I get it every day. Like Tude's talking shit about Andy every day.
10
times a day.
10 times a day. I got
fair.
guys
And I'm
fucking
like,
coming in.
Boom.
That's fair. It's very likely I did something.
Actually, you know what's funny is I've never had anybody, either one of you, I've never had anybody talk shit about either one of you. Which is,
I can give you
which is
names.
crazy.
I'll do a
Oh, yeah, give me that
success
list.
Surprising.
Yeah.
Like I've had
That's
people.
I'm shocked to hear that.
It's shocking.
Yeah.
It's so shocking. Like,
Now the reason I ask is that it like I couldn't be more proud of my military career, but you hear enough of that or you see enough of it, and most of the time, actually all of the time that I've kind of watched it from a distance on the online portals, which is a conversation in and of itself. I think my life would be better to turn a lot of that shit off.
100%.
It makes me want to not turn my back on that community, but it's disheartening because I'm so proud of that. But it's like, hey, guys, I got to move on, and I
It's
can't
behind me,
and
yeah.
I can't actually
Yeah.
pay attention to what you're saying anymore.
Yeah.
And that really sucks because I wish that I could,
Right.
but you're acting like fucking children.
Yeah. But you were all, I mean, we were all in our 20s at the prime in special operations. I mean, I was a 29-year-old team sergeant.
That's sick.
I was a
It's fucking awesome.
32-year-old sergeant major. So I was
Right.
like, you know, that life, dude, I was fucking retarded.
Yeah.
Like when I look at my 20s as a young, like assaulter in the CIF or
Right.
a young SF guy, dude, I was just I used to do a whole bunch of dumb shit that I look back on and go,
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, I was so squared away. I mean, I always made the right decision.
So professional.
Tactics were on point.
Yeah.
I never got emotionally involved with anything.
No.
It was just, I mean, I don't know if there have been textbooks written about it, but there should be.
It's
Dude.
called extreme ownership.
Jocko can write all that he wants. I take an extremely limited ownership approach in my 20s. No, I was a fuck show.
Dumb as shit. So all those guys, I think a lot of those guys, you won't really find a lot of guys our age with
Right.
our experience that are talking shit. Especially if you
No.
spend some time in civilian life,
Yeah.
you're like, dude, it's fucking hard.
A huge majority of the guys that I know, like, I don't spend a lot of time like around like regimental affiliations stuff. I mean, I'll do like a couple events a year in the context of like raising money or talking
Yep.
to Special Forces Association or whatever. And like the broad percentage of guys are like super positive because we're typically donating money, right? As
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
But I don't hear it. I'm sure they talk all kinds of shit. I just don't hear it. I mean, maybe not. I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, you know, you got to turn the volume down on that shit. Like squelch is on the radio for a reason, right? It's like, you got to just turn it off. And the message that I always give people in this context, and not that I'm giving it to you guys in any stretch of the imagination, I'm just saying like, that was a chapter of my life that, yeah, I'm super proud of. And I love a ton of those guys. I love the community because I think it teaches you so much about yourself. If you are fortunate enough to be introspective and then keep those lessons learned and then continue to evolve. But I think there are a lot of guys that use it as an excuse to say, I got the trophy. I'm great. And it says it on my shoulder. It says special. I'm special. It's like, yeah, you passed a course. You got a tab.
Yeah.
You did some really cool shit. But actually, the rest of your life can't be defined by that one fucking moment. And like, that's great, dude. You got a V device, but are you a good dad? Are you a good partner? Are you a good fucking, business owner? Are you part of your community? Like, that's cool. But that was 3.5 minutes of your life. And if you're going to let that define the rest of the years, like, man, you and a lot of guys, and I guess I'm rewinding in that context, is that like, they let the hat or the patch or the trident or whatever define all of their life.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, you got a lot of life to live, man. You can create these epic moments and galvanize relationships and build yourself outside of that. Like, you don't have to let that be your last thing, and you don't have to continue to like throw it back in people's face. Like, yeah, bro, I met this guy. I won't go on too many rants. I'm highly caffeinated, but I met this dude one time and I ended up fucking loving this guy. He was awesome. But when I first met him, I thought he was I'm confusing two people, but the one guy, which I'll tell you. So I go into this bar. We had a bar in Kabul, which I think is everybody knows about at this point. It's like, the agency had this bar and everybody come in, and this dude comes in. He's wearing like snakeskin boots, like cowboy boots, shit kickers in cobble. Okay. Like slick bottom cowboy boots. He's got a belt buckle the size of this fucking table, like a frying pan.
I feel like you would be wearing that though.
I would love to wear it now because it'd be like an irony. I do tons of shit in irony. I love it. And it's got a fucking trident on it in the middle of it that's like bigger than my fist.
Ooh.
Oh, it gets better, boys.
We call that low vis.
It gets better. And then he has a ring that looks like a rapper's, like one of those like old school rapper rings. It's so fucking big, and he's got another trident on it.
Oh.
Snakeskin boots, snakeskin belt, snakeskin holster, snakeskin magazine pouches. Like, yo, dude, this guy was dressed for like the tactical club. Like he was gonna fucking like come in and like either way. I cannot say this guy's name because he might still actually work there. And so I go up to him, and I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm somewhat of a troll. And I go up to him, I was like, "What's up, man? What's going on?" He's like, "What's up with you, man?" I was like, "So, were you an SF or what? What's up?" He's like, "I was a team guy." And I was like SF, right? He's like, "No, man." And I'm like, and this dude doesn't know that I'm fucking with him. I'm like, "Dude, of course I know you're a Navy SEAL. You're basically like with the fucking belt buckle and the ring and the fucking cowboy boots." And like, dude, come on, man. Look good. Oh, this guy looked good. Like,
was he an agency guy?
Good. Yeah. I'll tell you who it is afterwards. You'll know exactly who it is.
Oh, man.
And it was awesome because
That
I'm
is
not
awesome.
fucking around about the size of these things. They were massive. And it was that standard like roper type belt buckle, like cowboy belt buckle that was huge, and it was silver with the gold trident in the center of it and the same matching ring. And this dude was wearing cowboy boots and snakeskin everything. I'm like,
I'm not seeing
this is awesome.
That's like second phase gear issue. I don't know when you guys issue that stuff, but
it's like, here's your NVGs and here's your belt buckle. There you go.
The publishers will come meet you next week.
No, it was awesome.
Speaking of squelch on the radio, you reminded me of one of my favorite things. As a hypothetical, did you guys ever run around on Target and turn people's radios down or off?
I was a combo guy. I was a combo guy. I wouldn't think that was
I've had that experience.
All right. I'm just curious.
I would dump their crypto.
I'm not saying that I have. I'm just saying, how awesome would that be? Just
I would dump crypto all the time on guys because I was like, because they would fucking come to me and be like, "Hey, can you load my radio?" I'm like, "Are you like 10 years old, dude?
But
do you not know how to use a fucking Kick 13?"
I
So
know.
I'd say, "Yeah, no problem." And if they're rolling crypto like in an hour or whatever, I just dump it and be like, "Yeah, fuck off, like piss off, loser, get out of here."
my first role was as a comm guy, and I thought I had lost the Kick 13 one time.
Oh man,
Oh, that's so scary,
how do you
bro! It is like that scares me.
Oh,
right now.
Even you,
It makes
saying
you,
that
makes
it makes
you
me
sweat.
Yeah,
we have
it
to
makes
describe
me
what we're talking
sweat.
about. It's a very small device.
that you can lose in a fucking couch.
do they still use them?
Yeah.
Kick 13s?
They have like KYZ 1000s now, I think, that hold
Yeah.
even
Well,
more
the
crypto.
Crazy 10.
Crazy 10. That's
Yeah,
right.
The Crazy 10. Yeah.
Bottom line is the Kick 13 is smaller than this can of,
It's tiny.
Yeah.
And it's
Quad.
green.
and it's green. And if you push the fucking buttons in the wrong sequence, it dumps everything that's in it.
Kills
But
every-
you can load up.
Yeah.
So on the radios that we talk on, there's what the hell do we call it? It's not open source. It's
Sheriff.
No, just in the open, right?
Yeah.
In the green.
Yeah.
Right.
Not encrypted. Anybody can
Yeah,
hear it
yeah.
if you're on the right
Unencrypted,
freak. If you're in the red, you're encrypted. God, and there's like, I still remember this shit, the Vincent and A and DVT crypto and all that shit. One, you sound like a robot. One, you sound normal, assuming you have the shit set up appropriately.
Vincent for voice. Just
Yeah.
remember that, boys. V for V.
Advanced narrowband digital voice transmission. Holy fuck,
Look
man.
at
That's
you, bro.
Damn.
I thought I was the only commo nerd here.
No. And the reason I can remember this shit is I had a fucking 2-day panic attack where I couldn't find a Kick 13, which could have multiple days, weeks, and I think even if you had the right access, months of crypto. And this shit's used by the entire military.
Absolutely. You got the entire theater roll.
Correct.
Ooh.
So if you lose
never
that-
use that?
Oh, I did all the time.
yeah.
Yeah. As a team, running the MSS, it scared the shit out of me.
it scared the
I had
fucking
550
dog shit out
cord
of me.
like wrapped around every
So
piece of that.
that's what it
Yeah.
ended up being. It was 550 cord around the neck, which is not
Yep.
comfortable.
Yeah.
But if you lose this thing, like like battleships and aircraft carriers have to change their crypto.
Yeah.
So there was, at the end of every month, there was an inventory. And let's just say, hypothetically, one month, I came up one short.
Jesus.
And I just basically cold sweat for days until I found it in the bottom of a pocket of one of my backpacks that I think I may have been like taking home.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah. After that, it was 550 cord around the neck.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's
I would carry two.
terrifying.
I would carry two. I'd carry one in my left cargo pocket, one in my right cargo pocket, and I had a 550 corded to my belt.
Mm.
And I mean, that was the dumbest fucking thing ever because I was like, well, I would 550 it through the loop in the in your flap in your cargo pocket. Like I run the 550 cord through the loop, and then I tore the edge off of a fucking cargo pocket. So then I went up. And now you got fucking 550 cord going in there. And then I started carrying them in like my pockets, my front pockets, my fucking cargo pockets, because I was like deathly afraid of the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, one, every now and again, very, very rarely, the Kick 13 would dump. Like, and if you let Dum Dum McGillicuddy, like, 18 Charlie fucking touch shit that they don't know what they're doing.
Zeroed out.
Yeah, like, yo, dude, what did you
push
just
these
do?
two buttons
Like,
at the
why
same
would you
time?
do that, man? Like, I'm gonna leave
Who
you on
does
target,
that?
bro. Like, what are you talking about? To carry one in each
Moving
pocket,
the rotary dial around and hitting both buttons at the same time.
It's like I'm sweating thinking about
know,
it.
it's so
Like,
bad.
it's so bad, man.
It was,
And then you
hammered
go to
into
the
our head, though.
agency,
Oh God.
and they were like, you'd go in and be like, hey, man, I need an inventory. And they're like, what inventory? What are you talking about? We don't inventory anything here. Well, I need like a full inventory, right? Like, like accountability of our items, our sensitive items. They're like, you're a loser, weirdo.
Get out it's so weird.
What are you
Accountability in
talking
the
about?
military is so weird, though.
Yeah, it's like, you guys and your hyper fucking militarized things talking about like where your NVGs are, where crypto is. You need to get out of here with that.
One
We're
set
civilians.
of NVGs would shut down like theater operations with somebody lost.
Oh, bro,
a set of
pre 9/11,
NVGs.
I've spent multiple days looking for a pair of MVGs that somebody lost on an operation
Yeah.
to find out that they never took them on the operation and it was in their fucking bag the
Of
entire
course.
time.
It's so weird. Why is the military weird? That is a big jump or leap from going into the agency where nobody cares about any accountability.
Are you guys serious about that?
Oh, I'm dead serious.
Oh, you write off everything.
Because I have no experience with that
Writing
organization
off
from that
everything.
perspective.
no accountability on anything.
I would go into places and I'd be like, hey, so that's what I would, because it would drive me crazy. I have too much organizational aspects. It would drive me crazy. I'd walk into a shipping container in the middle of nowhere and there would be like stacks of ammo with different calibers and they didn't know how much they had. And they
Boxes of nods and guns and
weird ass
optics.
shit.
Why are they like that?
Because a lot of the original contractors were team guys. They were SEALs.
Yeah.
And and this is my theory, and no offense to your former regiment, but
It's going to be offensive.
it's going to be offensive.
I hope so. I'm here for it.
I think you guys have guys that do that for you. Like you have supply people
No, we go to supply people to get issued that stuff, but there is a fucking custody chain.
Oh.
Like even though I was at East Coast, at one time I was the NVEO, what is that, night vision equipment and optics department head. I had a monthly inventory. Like there was a bunch of stuff issued to the squadron, and then I can't remember the name of the piece of paperwork, 1149 probably, off to people, and all of that stuff was maintained. And I was the one, as an assaulter, still responsible for doing that.
Tracking hand receipts.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if they were getting ready, like we were going to go over to OEF and they were going to be disaggregate. Like I'm making boxes for them and I would sit down with the team leader, like, here's your inventory. And then it becomes their responsibility. So there was always that. I mean, there is a robust support network, but I mean, to me, it was hammered in my head. One of the fastest ways, two ways I could basically detonate my career: alcohol-related incident and losing serialized inventory. In a non-combat environment. Just like, that box of nods fell off the training, the truck of the training trip. Like you're done.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it's because it's a civilian organization, and then the original, I think sometimes they got blamed for it because the original crew that they hired in back in the day was like, there's like all
cops and
guys.
SEALs.
Yeah.
So they want the best of the
but
best.
then you had like civilians that were running it, and they just don't know. Like they don't know what they don't know. And I mean, it was run so fucking loosey goosey. At times, you'd be like, I remember one time I was talking to one of my buddies, and I was like, where have you been? He's like, dude, I flew out to this like Sinjar, Telefar, wherever the fuck he was, out in the middle of nowhere. There's like a shipping container with an antenna out in the middle of fucking nowhere. I fly out there and to drop off a maintenance guy. And the maintenance guy was doing his thing, and they were bringing another guy out. So maintenance guy gets back on the bird. I'm waiting for the next guy. 3 days go by. I don't have anything. I don't have a radio. I'm just out in the middle of fucking desert. And they forgot about this dude. And he's like, because they were supposed to be coming right back. And he's like, no radio, no phone, nothing. Like, they're like, oh, don't worry about it. Like, you know, we're on the ring route. Like, don't worry about it. We'll get you. It's like 3 days went by. He's like, I didn't have any food. I was like, I had one MRE, and then they fucking finally showed up out of like 3 days. And they're like, holy fuck. Oh, we thought you went back. And they're like, no, what are you talking about? Like, you guys aren't running like manifests and like,
no processes.
Oh my God.
No operational processes.
3 days. He's like, I was out in the middle of nowhere for 3 fucking days with no comms, like trying to figure out how the fuck I was going to even get out of here. He's like, I thought maybe the bird went down, and like now nobody knows who was on the fucking bird or whatever. He's like, nothing. They're supposed to be right back. They just went back, and they're like, no, Dan, let's get some coffee. Weren't we supposed to do something? No, I can't remember anything. You, Eric? Nope. Oh, fuck it. I don't know. Let's go to the bar. Let's go eat chow. Let's go. Yeah. It was so, like, those early years in Iraq were fucking, they were fucking Looney Tunes. Because
do you guys think they fixed it?
Yeah, done. So good. Fixed it so good.
Fixed it so hard.
You fixed it so hard.
That's what I thought. So it's just the same. Got it.
Like, yeah. Because were you on the original invasion
of Iraq? Yeah.
Yeah. Where'd you guys come in from?
ARAR, Saudi Arabia.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Were you on the initial?
No, I was in the Q course
Fucking new guy.
during the invasion. Missed it all. I was in selection during Afghan's invasion.
Yeah.
And then I was in the Q course during Iraq.
Don't worry.
Chomping at the bit, man.
Some of us held down.
You
I
got,
know.
But you
shouldered your burden
the
for you,
fucking
Mike.
spicy portion of the war. The fucking invasion was like it was like the Cannonball Run. I mean, it was just like,
yeah.
like
I got
Cannonball Run with a little bit of fucking
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, but 6, 7, 8 that was the glory years.
Ugh.
That was
peak kinetic years.
Yeah.
Peak.
Yeah.
Task Force 16, McChrystal's Machine. I got 3 of those rotations. Amazing. One of the squadrons was there, but I remember looking at those dudes and thinking to myself, like, holy shit, like, these are Vikings. Like, these dudes. I was talking to DJ about it, but my impression of those units, even being a young assaulter in the SIF, I was like, they get to wear fucking beards down to their fucking body armor.
Yeah.
And their fucking, all their shit was cut. All their sleeves were cut.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they go into the gym and just beat the fuck out of bags and lift weights and shit, then get on the bird and go kill. And I was like,
oh, yeah.
it doesn't get better than this, man.
Right.
It was awesome.
That was you. Did you have a giant beard?
No, I'm not. I could only grow an Abraham Lincoln beard.
Did you cut your
my
sleeves
alias
off?
name would be Habish.
Did you cut your sleeves off?
Your sleeves were cut, though.
100%. Oh,
Yeah.
100% cut off.
Sexy cut.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let you guys cut your sleeves off?
No, I mean, eventually.
I did some weird shit, though, back then. Like, there's pictures of me where I'm doing some weird shit. Again, back to unprofessionalism.
Oh, yeah.
I'm wearing, in one picture, this is with Task Force, I'm wearing a Australian top
Mhm.
Yeah.
with ACU bottoms.
That's not a bad idea, though. It's
not.
a mix and match.
Because I thought, like, the Australian top had the shirt integrated into it, because we were like hand sewing that because it wasn't available from Cry.
Right.
We were taking DCUs and attaching them to t-shirts, like with the local sewer. So that was good for body armor.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'd go around in garrison doing planning and whatever we were doing, and just looking like a dumbass.
Yeah.
And, and the unit had their sexy Cry,
Yeah.
original AR1, whatever.
$800 top and bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the Ranger Regiment had ACUs. They just got ACUs. And then we were just wearing some janky shit. Just weird, janky shit. Stepchildren, man.
That's kind of like the whole thing, though. It's like when you Your uniform is just your uniform. It was like, nobody cares. Who cares?
Nobody gave a fuck.
Nobody
back then.
cares.
The only priority was killing people.
Yeah. Like, I mean,
That's it.
I was telling somebody the other day, I was like, yeah, I mean, I used to wear a fucking burqa in the back of a goddamn car all the time because I am smaller.
Yeah.
And it made sense. You can't have a person your size, especially if you're going to get out of the street.
Yeah.
You can't have a
Who's that
person
big
your
bitch?
size wearing that. It doesn't make sense. So I oftentimes got that. That's what I got. You know, I mean, it is what it is. But
by a few seconds at least on the street.
well, on the car, you know, if you're doing like low vis, like it was always in the back of the car. So I ended up in the back of the car with the fucking saw, you know, a little parasaw, a couple nut sacks, a couple frags.
I used to run
Like,
the
I'm the chick being driven around by these fucking dudes. That's the way it goes.
Yeah. The Rangers, I had the Rangers. The coolest ops I was doing was in Afghanistan, but I had one of my Afghan partner unit guys, like a tier 1 Afghan, trained by Ranger Regiment. I would drive looking all neurostanied out like an Afghan.
Yeah. You look great.
And I just like slump my shoulders and sing into my man jams. And then I had
Did you smoke? Did you
Oh,
always-
yeah.
yeah.
Those pine, like what
It's
those,
like garbage.
oh God, dude. You could blow into like a napkin and just be black tar. It's fucking disgusting. I had 2 Ranger Regiment, because they run snipes. They have a snipe section and a recce section.
Right.
So I'd run the recce guys in burkas on, was it Tough Book CF-19?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the old CF-19s.
Probably Falcon View.
Falcon View.
Little
It
Falcon
was on,
View.
They were on Falcon
She
View.
was so fun.
Navin.
Remember when that shit came out?
Commodore
Like, dude,
2000. Like a fucking,
that was like the best.
It was like
You're
Atari.
oh my God.
It was
The
Atari
first, like,
days.
moving maps. You're just like, oh my God.
Oh my
It's-
God.
The latency and delay of that
Oh,
shit
yeah.
was just grotesque.
No, I never missed a
Grotesque.
corner because of it, though.
Yeah.
You definitely didn't.
Never. And then a Ranger private in the backpack with a saw machine gun just ready to break doors and
Is that an
mow
E4?
shit down. E4, yeah.
Yeah.
E4.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the media thing? Can we
Which
talk
one?
about that a little bit?
Oh, like the
disconnect?
media, like
Not like the whole thing,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
can we
yeah,
talk
yeah.
a little
That
bit
is
about
a
it?
Yeah.
fucking drastic break from what we were talking
I
about.
know, but
like
I have to I'm excited about it.
Mike is so excited about this, and so am I.
Yes.
Like, I think we're all excited about it, which is like
I have a
I'll
moderate
tee it up.
level of
I'll tee it
excitement.
up. I'll tee it
You
up.
guys
Tee it
can
up,
be
tee it
very
up.
I
excited.
won't tee it up in any like really good fashion. We're talking about this the other day where all these people that benefit from the car crash, right? It's like you were talking about it earlier. Politicians are selfish, they're self-driven, and they gaslight people with the intent of getting them to the voting booth. So they create these like fictional narratives, which ultimately they've also been able to exploit those fictional narratives to cause division in the country by, we'll call them like Iran and China and North Korea, all the other strategic enemies. So they're almost working in concert to spin people up and create these like fictional divisions between people and then gaslight and then ignite the fuel on each one of them because their intent is to divide and then galvanize and then activate the base, as they call it, right? So it's basically they benefit directly from extremism in any form. When I'm saying that, like left or right or whomever it is. And we were talking about this the other day. We're like, you know, most people are fairly logical. They're not out there like ready to fucking, you know, go to war over whether or not you want an electric car or not. Like it doesn't really matter. Like it's not this real division, whereas people get fucking spun up. And then the media has a direct representation in that process too, because they want the eyeballs. So it's always this like continuation of the escalation of information to drive traffic because they need the revenue. They need the votes. They need the revenue. They need the hyper sensationalized event in any regard because that's what our enemy wants. Our real enemies are actually not within the border. It's actually China, Iran, North Korea. Like, and the people that really need to understand that, I think, are just the general population. They need to understand they directly benefit from dividing the entire country and getting us to fight ourselves. And so they're playing into this, and that what's that doing is it's directly contributing to the division in the United States. So Mike and I were talking about this. Like, how do we how do we figure out a way to have just normal conversations with people? And I think that's one of the reasons why Joe has been so successful, by the way, because
absolutely.
he has wide variety of conversations with a ton of different people.
Yeah.
And he's a fairly open-minded guy. So he's getting real information in long form, in the long form segments. So we were talking about it. We're like, and I'll hand it over to you. We were talking about in the veteran community, who do we know that has media representation within the veteran community that we typically can speak with, some form of authority? We should probably put something together and figure out how we can at least discuss topics without having this hyper sensationalized bullshit that's like everywhere. Everybody's offended. Everybody's activated. Everybody is fucking hypersensitive to anything. It's like, are they though? Because I've been like fucking accused of all kinds of weird ass shit, like being a communist in the last year online or whatever, because my friend's Tulsi, and
2/3 of those are my comments though.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
But
So,
nobody's ever said anything. Nobody's ever said anything to my face.
Dude, I was
Like,
just going to ask.
ever.
I was just going to say this to you. I'm not going to derail this, but I'm going to go back to a conversation we had on the phone like a week ago when I was
Right.
planning to come out here. I'm driving home and he calls me. I'm like, "What's up, man?" And you're like, I'm like, "You're not following what's going on?" Which I wasn't at all. And you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm back in the trenches." So of course I go on the fucking internet to figure out what you're talking about afterwards. Oh, and it was even better. This is how we ended the call. He goes, "We were talking and we knew we were going to do this and come podcast and some business meeting afterwards." He's like, "What I really want for you, what I'd really like is," and then he goes, "Oh shit, I got to take this other call," and hop off and fucking hangs up. It was awesome. It was like the Ocean's 11 where the guy's like, "Whatever you do, don't," and then somebody gets his attention and walks off. So I'm laughing. I'm like, first off, I know he'll never call back because he's busy as fuck, which is fine because we were going to sit down. So I get home and I go into Twitter.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my fucking God. And it was all based around the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict. And I'm not even going to get into that topic because I discussed it directly on the podcast and my thoughts and all that. But the more I was thinking about it, I was looking at the way people were interacting, and I landed on the exact same spot where what you just said. And this is why I brought that in there. I've never had conversations with people like that face to face.
No.
It actually only happens for whatever reason on Twitter. That seems to be the most toxic. Second would probably be YouTube commentary.
Right.
And then Instagram is a little bit more nerfed when it comes to people engaging like that. And I have no idea why that is. But in person, I've never actually met or discussed or talked with anything like that with anybody, regardless if they're wildly disagree on in every position. At the end of the day, it's like, "Hey, cool, man. Like, that's not my jam. You do you, I'll do me."
Right.
There's none of this like, fuck you and fuck everything about you. I hope that you guys get canceled, blah, 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 blah. It's like, first off, maybe just don't drink the coffee.
Yeah. Just, you can just use your dollar, like vote with your
elsewhere. But that level of interaction, it's very weird.
It's really weird. And I think it's because a lot of it is just direct misinformation. And I've seen a lot of it and when I say I've seen a lot of it, like, I'll get a summarized, like an in-sum, basically. It'll be like, this is what is published on this end or whatever. I'm like, well, the facts were, I literally said, as we, like, I've said on both your shows, actually, it's like, no, I just didn't feel it was ethically acceptable in any way for us to profit, or even the perception of profiting from this. There was never like, oh, I threw him under the bus. I never said that. It's like, the judicial system will prevail. It looks to me like he had every right to defend himself, but it's not ethically acceptable for any company, I think, to profit from this, which I still think this is 100% accurate, the right position, which is also don't profit from this event.
Well, the people who are online who are screaming at you like you owe him an apology and all that stuff, I think we should be very clear that they've never been in a position where they have to, as a brand, as a global brand at this point, if you had said nothing, you were going to alienate a certain portion of fill in the blank. If you had said something, which you did, you're going to alienate another portion. So there's no way that you're getting out of that situation scot-free. None of the people who are complaining about this, I think, have any understanding of the gravity of those decisions. Because if you remember, you were at my fucking house on the phone with reporters when all of this shit first went down. And I was sitting there watching you having to deal with that. And I was thinking in my head that you're fucked. You're in a no-win situation. And so after looking through all that Twitter stuff, I was thinking about it. I'm like, oh, let's say there's 100,000 people who are online who are really upset about this.
Yeah.
Let's focus on the other 330 million in
people.
the US. So my advice is turn that shit off. But first off, the name of the company, I don't know if you know this, is probably going to alienate about half the US population.
Yeah, a good 50%. A good 50%.
So there's no way you'll ever change their mind. That's totally fine. But even if it's 1 million people that are online screaming that you owe somebody an apology, turn that shit off and let's just focus on actually moving the fucking rock down the field, because it's wasted energy, man.
Oh,
and
I
could hear it in your voice though. You were fucking fried.
Well, it wasn't that, because I turn it off.
Yeah.
Like I turn it off. It was and it's not even the constant cycle of things. It's, hey, there are a lot of media outlets that kind of reach out and they want to talk about it or whatever. And you're like, hey, no comment. I'm not interested in it. And this is why it's like, it's reserved for conversations with people like us, because you're from my tribe. And it's like, yeah, it's at the end of the day, it's like, man, I don't owe anyone any apology because I didn't seek to profit from this. Like, that's just not acceptable in my mind. It isn't. So, and then the other piece was like, yeah, you're misquoting my fucking intentions or even the story from the New York Times all the way around. Yeah. Like, so now it's time for you guys to start reading and believing everything the New York Times has to say. Like, and it's like, I've already addressed this stuff even on like Rogan show, and I posted stuff on it. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to talk about it because I don't need to. I don't need to talk about it anymore. But I think it's interesting from a negativity perspective, the context of people get so spun up and they get bought into just false information all the way around. And then they start spreading additional layers of just false. And then by the time the game of telephone rolls around, you're like, dude, what started this was like all the way over here, and you're talking about this over here. It's fucking crazy.
Well, it ties into the value of what your idea was of having a place where you can actually discuss things like that, absent the agenda or narrative.
You have to.
Let me. So, like, one,
let's pause before you go into that.
You got to piss?
I got to piss.
I got to piss.
And I know you got to piss. If I got to piss, you got to piss.
Introducing the new Fieldcraft Mobility Go Bag. Designed from real-world special operations experience. For quick response in the most critical situations. When seconds count and help is minutes or hours away. The Mobility Go Bag is designed to easily detach from the back of your seat and built with modularity in mind. Featuring simple conversion to a backpack. For on-the-go preparedness through any circumstance. Now available at the Fieldcraft Survival Store.
Oh, what is that? That's kind of like
Circus Bear.
Super. It's like beer.
Yeah, it's Circus Bear.
First off, the best blend of coffee you make is the fucking podcast blend.
You mean your blend?
Oh, fuck. It is so good. But I give people a warning. Like, if you make a cold brew with this, you better be sitting on the toilet when you drink it.
Yeah.
But that with a pour over, holy shit,
that's
dude.
you have the medium roast,
you
right?
are cleared hot.
Yeah.
You are cleared hot.
I will do a nice little Chemex brew with that in the morning. Holy shit, man.
Do you clear yourself hot when you do that?
So the first time I made cold brew with it, I put it in the steeper, and then a trip came up, so I was gone for 3 days.
Oh yeah.
And I came back and I filled up a cup about this size. I was just like, gut, put it down, and just heard. I was like, oh God.
Yeah, that will wreck you, especially because if you used a full bag with another gallon of water.
I used an entire bag of coffee
and steeped it.
Yeah.
Well, that's the ratio. Use it's 12 ounces or a full ground coffee to a gallon. So you use a gallon of water, and then you let it steep for 24 hours.
What are the bags? What are the common bag sizes? Yeah.
Like this. This is the Rambo. Which
is it 14?
This is 12.
Yep.
So this is a gallon of coffee.
That's a gallon. So
or
you ground that up
30 ounces.
Or 30 ounces.
Damn.
And okay, I do have a quick fucking super funny story. So I was talking to Sly Stallone, and
Like Rambo.
Like
Rambo.
actually talking
Rambo.
No, I was talking to Rambo, and
For real. Like, yeah.
So I get a text from one of my friends in there, and he was like, "Hey, Sly wants to talk to you." And I was like, "You fucking
What?
with me, right?" He's like, "No, he wants to talk to you. He's been calling you. I gave him your number." And I was like, "My phone hasn't fucking rung one time." And he's like, "He's called you like 6 times." And I'm like, "What number did you send him?" And he's like, "Your number." And then he texted me the number. I was like, "That's not my number. You're texting. Like, you can look at my number. It's not my number." Oh. So Sly had been calling some other dude like 6 times and like leaving him messages.
Oh.
So I call him, or I call him back on FaceTime, and he's like, "Yo, what's up?" Or whatever, right? I don't know. But
That dude's still alive.
yeah, man, he's super cool. He's like the coolest of the cool. Because,
Really?
yeah, dude, I talked with Rambo about Rambo for 45 minutes. Like,
Is he a fan?
of Rambo?
Yeah.
No, not this coffee, but dude, it was epic because First Blood is I was like, hey, first and foremost, like, I just got to get out there. Like, First Blood is the one of the single most beautiful cinematic treasures we have as a country, right? And he's like,
Perhaps in humanity.
yeah. It's
great.
And so we talked about First Blood, and we talked. Like, he gave me a ton of really cool information about it because I have the original painting from the artist that did.
Oh,
it's at my house.
Oh, okay.
Put that to my house from the First Blood novel. So the guy that did the painting or the
Artwork,
artistry,
yeah.
the artwork, he had an acrylic painting. My wife found it on eBay. It was $500.
The odds of that.
The odds. She's like, "I think this is really cool." And I was like, "Bitch, hang up the phone and buy that right now." And
How did she randomly found that?
dude, it was random. She was like, "I think this
The
is really
internet
cool."
is full of treasures. That's the answer.
Was it under Rambo?
No, it wasn't.
Wow.
And it wasn't under any of that. She was just randomly like, hey, she was looking for some art. She's like,
What a
we don't
treasure.
want. And I literally, that's exactly what I said.
It's the dude with the rifle because
Yes.
he's like run up. Ah.
And I knew what it was. I knew exactly what it was. She like screenshot it, texted me, and called me, and I was like, "You hang up this fucking phone and buy that."
It was
shit.
$500 buy it
It's
now.
$500 buy it now. And so then I started going down the rabbit hole on all these other paintings because this guy that actually did all the paintings for like a bunch of different book covers.
You're trying to find them.
Yeah, Jerome Podwell was his name. So he has this other painting that I found, and so Operation Mongoose was to counter the Soviet intervention in Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
So he has a painting. It's in my kitchen, and it has a USSR rocket being launched into fucking the atmosphere with a mongoose on it, and they've got all these like American tanks or American trucks that are running around. As soon as I saw it, I knew exactly what it was. I was like, "That's about Operation Mongoose," And so it's like rich in history, and he's got a bunch of other wild fucking paintings that are all over the fucking place, and they're kind of random. But so I bought a few of these, and a lot of these are romance novels that he would paint the romance novels for, and we got a few of them. And if you go to a Black Rifle coffee shop and look for one, they'll be in there. And the reason that they're in there is because Podwell did the artwork for First Blood, and it's an homage to like my book that I loved so much as a kid.
Mm.
Yeah,
I like that. Well, was
he's really
Sylvester
kind of a
Stallone?
psychopath.
Why did he like? What was the? He just wanted to
He was
shoot it,
like,
shoot the shit.
yeah, it was fucking wild, man. Like, and we were just talking about like I was like, hey, no offense, but the 2 greatest Rambos are number 1, and whichever one you were in, Burma. Like, I don't know the
That
number.
was a good one as well.
I was like, you could chop everything else out.
Yeah.
And he's like, 100%. I did both those. He's like, and he was like, yeah, that's why, because I had creative control over those 2. And these are the way that I wanted those to be was very specific. I had like most of the creative control over those, but the Rambo series had been sold a couple different times to different companies, and he didn't have creative control. So he's like,
That sucks.
Didn't have creative control, so I couldn't really do it. But the one in Burma, I got to do, and that was shot in Thailand. It was like the way that he was explaining.
That was sick. That
And
was
it was like
50 cal point blank range of like
Yeah.
evaporating dudes' nuggets. I was like,
that was
that's
his
real.
idea.
That's like
It was his
really
idea.
good.
He's like, I want to see what this does. And they went and filled like a fucking duffel bag full of meat and like shot it with a 50 cal just to see
Yeah.
what it did. Cause he's like, I want this in the show, you know? And I was like, okay, cool, man. But yeah, I've had a couple really weird conversations, like really cool conversations with people. I'm like, like Ted Nugent called me the other day, and like
Really?
the Nuge, man. I was
Yeah.
like, this is awesome.
I was there when he went to Iraq in like 04 or 05 or 05. He went to Iraq for a trip, and he was like shooting guns with us and stuff. And they did a fast rope demo for him.
Yeah,
Cool dude.
That's not me name dropping, by the way. I'm like
Yeah.
always amazed when I like, wow, come on. But a couple years ago, I've told this story a few times before. Is Governor Perry, Rick Perry,
Yeah.
called me on the phone, and I was on a bus because I was going out to the Indy 500 because we were thinking about sponsoring some things there. So they're trying to wine and dine me. I was like, I don't know anything about Indy 500, right? So I get this phone call, and I'm like, hello, like, hi, this is Evan, whatever kind of weird ass stupid voice I have. And this guy's like, hey, Evan, this is Rick Perry. And I was like, fuck off. Who is this? He's like quiet. He's like, no, man, Marcus Luttrell gave me your number. I was like, sorry, sir. I'm a semi-retarded person that is capable of doing basic things like, performing, cleanliness and driving myself, sometimes feeding myself. Outside of those things, like, I apologize.
What do you want? You just want to say what's up?
Because we're opening up a bunch of shit in Texas.
Oh,
He's like,
yeah,
hey,
yeah.
want to congratulate you. Like, this is awesome. Come on down, boy. Like, let's make this happen.
Do you get any cold calls like that? I'm not getting any of those. Madison Cawthorn, I got.
That's cool.
Madison's
No,
cool.
zero.
He's cool. You don't have any of that.
Yeah, because
That's a
he already knows
lie.
all those guys.
I know. He's
like
wines
friends
and
with all
dines
those
them.
guys.
I don't actually,
Keanu Reeves, like he's just
Stop it. I did meet Keanu Reeves about a week ago.
Did you really? Where at?
cool dude, huh?
Rode a motorcycle with him all day long. And in,
Oh, you
Like
guys
on the
did a ride
back?
with
Were you
him.
on the back or was he on the back?
I was driving. He was facing me on my left. We shared a helmet though.
Perfect. Is he a cool dude?
He was an extremely generous person with his time. Super nice. And I don't know. People of that level, like what I mean by that is like the
Celebrity status.
world the orbit that I think that they live in, there's a huge disconnect between their daily life and what I think I understand.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it was cool. There was like 5 or 6 of us riding bikes that day. He was one of them. The most time I actually spent with him was when we were having lunch, and he was super cool. And then he
Right.
went home, and it's like, hey man, see ya. So cool experience. But at the same time, I also am not starstruck by
Yeah.
anybody either.
I'm not either.
Did
It's
you just
not-
get like one of those email invitation invites? It was like, hey, do you want to ride motorcycles with
So-
Keanu Reeves and 4 other guys and eat lunch and fucking?
My business partner in the coffee shop
Oh,
has
yeah.
been riding for probably 30 years. And Keanu Reeves and Gard Hollinger have a motorcycle company called Arch.
Yeah.
He has one of their
Super
bikes,
cool.
and they'll do owners events. And
The fuck is an arch?
it's
like a
It's a real
Custom
motorcycle.
motorcycle. Yeah. It's
motorcycle.
just,
Oh, okay.
You
so
standalone.
a lot of people associate it with Keanu. I would say actually the heavy hand in that is Gard Hollinger, the guy who's actually figuring
Right.
shit out and doing the geometry and all
Right.
that. So we were doing a ride, and he had just gotten back, I guess, from like basically 2 years on the road of filming movies, like all the rest of the Matrix ones and the
They're doing another Matrix.
yeah, I think it's coming out now. And then the John Wick, I think he did 2 back to back. Hadn't ridden a motorcycle in like 8 months, so he was like, "Hey, if you guys are riding, I'm gonna come along with." So I don't know.
That's cool.
I don't understand the environment that those people live in.
Yeah.
I don't either.
It's weird. Are you starstruck by anybody?
No, I am depending on the depending on the person. When I say like
Yeah.
depending on the person, but typically those are like, when I say, they're typically guys that are military,
Yeah.
spooky guys that
John Striker Meyer was.
I was just thinking
Yeah.
exactly the same thing.
I was
yeah.
like, whoa, dude.
Like
you
like
gave me
him-
a coin? I was like,
yeah, that's fucking badass.
so
Or,
badass.
Like
that
some,
podcast was so fun. The
So
three of
fun.
them.
oh man.
So fun.
But like if you make like, and I can't really say some of these guys or whatever, but when you meet somebody that is like Tom Spooner, right? When I first met Tom,
Yeah.
that guy's a bad motherfucker. Like he's a
Spoon.
bad,
Yeah.
he's kind of a legend.
Yeah. Kyle Lamb. I'll
Kyle
put
Lamb,
in there.
Tom
Yeah.
Spooner, like these guys are legends, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at those guys, I know what they've done.
Yeah.
And
Jamie Caldwell. I got to add him too.
Jamie Caldwell, like I know what they've done,
Yeah.
or Andy,
Or not Andy,
Or-
but
Yeah.
but we all know these guys. Like we
Yeah.
know of them and we know what they've done, and I'm like really fucking impressed by
Yeah.
the fact that they're still like cruising around too. Like just the fact like you're walking around and fucking it's like, whoa, that's wild. But yeah, outside of that, like people that play other people, like really cool. My daughters like they play dress up all the time in the backyard, and it's way more entertaining than watching some dumb fucking memorize a script and
Yeah.
do it for millions of dollars. I'm pretty sure if I got $20 million, I could fucking rehearse and become a pretty goddamn good actor
Be
and try to
perfect.
fucking I'd be like, what do you want me to do?
That-
Who do you want me to be?
What's the
I'll-
SEAL? What's the SEAL show that's still on? There's one that canceled. And there's one that's
SEAL Team CBS.
SEAL Team.
is it
Yeah.
just called SEAL Team? Yeah, because Tyler's on
There's
that
good.
one.
Yeah, Tyler's a
on that
good.
one.
Like I love Tyler, but that main actor that plays like maybe the team leader, the troop sergeant major, or whatever. He wore a shirt recently that said something like
Did it say this show is gay?
it was something similar to that. It was like support trans children or something like that. And he got a lot of shit. I mean, his account got deleted, and I was like I lost all respect for that because I don't think children need to be worried about if they're what sexuality, any sexuality and any sexual.
It's just weird.
It's just weird as fuck.
It's
like,
weird.
Like let a kid be a kid. Let him
Yeah.
like baby shark.
Yeah.
You know what I
Hey,
mean?
man.
Just stop. And he's wearing a shirt about it, and he's like selfieing about whatever. And he's playing a Navy SEAL, like a badass SEAL. But what I've realized in those guys' social media accounts is they'll post up like they're taking a war photo, like it's real. Like
Yeah.
they're like, I mean, the dude's like here with a dog, and he's like,
Yeah,
and that's his persona. And people are like, oh, that dude's so badass. And I'm like, but the dude, like that's like there's a makeup team and that's not real.
no,
Oh, you
And
guys don't have that in SF?
no, we do.
Yeah, we a little
Yeah,
bit. Yeah,
it's
we got to. It's just
It's a 18.
it's not as
it's a 18
robust as you
Yankee.
guys.
We
It's
had
a
a
18
I had a
Yankee.
pocket on my gear, just like mirror, and you put it back up.
It's so weird to me. That culture is just weird.
Well, it's weird. It's weird that people don't understand, and I run into this all the time, where people don't understand or can distinguish between fact or fiction. Right? It goes back to our original
Yeah.
conversation we were having a little while ago, which is you're fictionalizing these events where like you're believing this is a real person. Yeah, that's a real person, but they're playing somebody on TV, and you have to kind of like, Tom Cruise is probably a pussy. Like,
Yeah.
Matt Damon plays, Jason Bourne, but he can't do any of that. And I think a lot of people have a hard time distinguishing between fiction and fact because they're like, oh, Matt Damon, man, I bet
He's a
you he's a
badass.
badass. And you're like,
That concerns
He's
me
an
that
actor.
people would be fooled by that.
are you? Are you concerned? Because it seems
They can be
fairly
fooled by
normal.
well, normal and concerning can occur
Mm,
in the same sentence.
right.
If you don't have the mental horsepower to work your way through that and realize that their job is to portray multiple people,
Mm-hmm.
I think you might have a hard time separating the wheat from the chaff in everyday life.
Yeah. Did you hear the podcast with Rogan and Tristan Harris, the
No.
Social Dilemma dude?
No,
Yeah.
I did watch the show, which was
Yeah.
disturbing,
Yeah.
but I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't listen to the conversation.
So one of the main factors in their conversation, they brought in another subject matter expert. I apologize, 'cause I don't know the dude's name, but what they did was they made all of the indications of a catastrophe taking place in the future based on all of the things that they're seeing, which is social media is driving people's lives and behavior in a very different way. And we all know that. That is the social dilemma. But what I realized in that conversation, which they said, hey, we need to do something about it. And they used Taiwan as an example, where they have regulations that are, I guess you call them ethical regulations. But what I always go back to is the idea that just like with firearms, just like with sugar's my analogy. Sugar kills more people, arguably, but we all understand it, than anything in the world, because the leading cause of death is cardiovascular disease, which sugar can be directly attributed to. So when we were kids growing up, we saw commercials like Tony the Tiger, and you're like, fuck yeah, I'm getting pumped. I want to eat that bowl of sugary shit and put it in my body.
Hell yeah.
And my dad's like, fuck yeah, let's get more of that. Let's double down and just get all these sugary shit because you're happy. And I could see that, like, okay, but we don't know what it's doing to our health. It's like the smoking industry, same thing. But how do you regulate that? Well, you regulate it by putting a sticker on the fucking thing.
A warning label.
A warning label, a tax hike.
Yeah.
So with social media, it doesn't need to be, I don't think it needs to be regulated. I think at the end of days, what you will have is people that make an educated choice, like we make choices with guns, like with sugar, with everything in our lives, and we put the fucking phone down. So what we need is more moderate voices. Back to this whole media thing, right? Yep. So let me just say this, because people don't understand how this works business-wise. The only way this will work, and this is just me putting on you, is you, right? Because when you look at the infrastructure required to build this thing out, it requires a powerhouse conglomerate of networks, of relationships, and people who are vested. You got people that are vested, because we texted on a text thread and conversations 6 major players, including Andy, including
minor player.
Yeah,
major.
You know what's funny is like
major.
Out of the group, there's 6 of them, which are the most. I don't want to say their names because I don't know their investment in this as far as if they're on board. We have to make that argument or make that discussion. When you take it, I'm the least popular dude in the whole group.
You're the most popular.
Not in the least.
Most liked.
Maybe most liked, but least popular. I'm actually the only one who hasn't been on Rogan.
You're the only one.
Yeah.
You're the only Asian.
I'm the only Asian. I'm the diversity. Oh, actually, there's a person of color on there, which is, she could be, I don't know, she's not Asian, but she's Pacific Islander.
Sure.
But when you look at that home run team, that squad, what we're talking about is you have fringe networks, and I don't think the Daily Wire is fringe, but they're far right, most certainly.
I like those guys, so
I love them.
I love them too. Like, I really enjoy, because it's a counterbalance. Because when you listen to NPR, and I haven't necessarily listened to NPR for years, but I used to listen to their morning show because because I don't like turning on the TV. I wanted like a radio.
I wanted news.
And I just need a summary. I need, like, these are the things that are happening across the United States. I don't want to listen to
political commentary.
I can't believe these goddamn, you're like, dude, I just need the facts, man. So I turn it on the radio, and like NPR's on every radio station, and there's no visual stimuli either, right? So, but I think a lot of it is just like, it's counterbalancing the left.
100%. It is, yeah.
So it's nothing derogatory towards any of those guys. It's just hey, yeah.
So you have what it is you have a segment. Like Blaze TV is certainly the fringe, right? So you have the far right and you have far left, like the Rachel Maddows of the world, the everything CNN of the world.
Yeah. Or you got like the Young Turks, right? Or those guys, have you ever watched any of that shit? Oh yeah. I think that's what it is. There's this fucking crazy like left channel, and I forget what. God, I'll pull it up. Do you know what it is, Derek? What is it called? The Young Turks? Yeah. So like, they're
extreme.
Nuts. Dude, they're crazy.
Yeah.
They're all like socialist weirdos that are like talking about, we need to unify around the sickle and hammer. It's fucking nuts, dude.
Yeah.
They're fucking Looney Tunes.
Well, I think the disaffected majority of this country feel like there's not a home. Andy and me were talking before the podcast. The predictions are about 80% of the country, but I agree with Andy. It's like, it's probably more than that, right? So you have, like, let's just say you have 10% on each side and you're looking at 80% of the population. Where do they go for reliable news? Where do they go for commentary that's balanced? And what positive critiques I've gotten over the years is like, and I've know this of Andy as well as you, is yeah, like that makes sense to me. That doesn't sound extreme or radical. That sounds like common sense logic that we're applying to things. And if you're what's unique about all the players that are in this is they all come from robust operational experiences where you find that balance through your experiences. Like you want to go and lay down the hammer, but you can't because you got to build rapport with the host nation. There's certain, I almost feel like to be on that list, everybody has 10 years of experience operationally and some kind of real experience in life outside of popular culture, like overseas doing shit. And so when you look at that, if not built in the right structure, it's a popularity contest. We're talking about it. It sounds good philosophically, but when you actually do it, it could change the country. And I selfishly think about the next election cycle. Mm-hmm. And I think what's going to happen a year leading to this next election cycle, what happened last November times 10. Because now the social media platforms are emboldened, they'll just turn off. They will literally turn off everybody. Yep. They'll have fake algorithms that show you a clicker where you're like, oh, I'm getting 10,000 likes, and you're not getting any exposure. Mm-hmm. Nobody's, because you got 0 comments, right? There's an opportunity for, I think, moderate, logical, and reasonable human beings to have a conversation that's not fringe, that discuss things, and like we had talked about it, that gives the facts of matters that mean most to Americans. Like when you talk about a bill that's 1,000 pages, nobody knows what the fuck that means. But when you have a human being who's reasonable, who does the research, who could distill that and communicate things that you could understand about your decisions, you're informing the country. And there's none of that now because we're either extremely woke or we're extremely radical. And there's no moderate version of that in the middle. And I don't think there's an opportunity at any, like when you look at Jocko suppression, up until like a month ago, that wasn't even a thing for Jocko. He heard about it every once in a while, but now he's literally getting suppressed. And you're asking, people should be asking the question, why is that dude getting suppressed? Me and Andy are more extreme when we talk about things in podcasts. He doesn't do that at all. So why the fuck is he getting suppressed? Because he's a threat. And now that the media owns the narrative, we have no fucking voice. When I laughed yesterday, somebody sent me a text and I was talking about, they're like, Black Rifle Coffee this, Black Rifle Coffee that. I was like, so what's the issue here? Like, well, I think people are going to be migrating away from Black Rifle Coffee. I was like, Black Rifle Coffee just had a $1.7 billion valuation. They're in tens of thousands of communities across the nation. I'm involved, Andy's involved. Like, these are real world players making a difference in tangible, structured business that is unstoppable. And they're like, oh, I didn't realize like it had that much effect. Yeah, because you're watching one window on one platform and one scroll and click, and you're not seeing the full picture. When you step back and see the full picture, you'll go, oh, fuck, we're behind. We need to do something about this. And I only think that the people that we talked about have the real ability to bring the country together and stop dividing the country.
Well, I think you're right. I think that but I also think that moderates in some ways are seen as, and they're villainized as extremists by like the left or the right? So like I find like Joe is very moderate, like, but he is like, people are trying to cancel him, it seems like every week, because he said something that they don't like. And I think that's the whole thing where, especially for the right, like it's like conservatives should be like individual freedom, right? It's like, hey, freedom of speech, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. They shouldn't be so hell-bent on condemning people that have contradictory ideas, because that's like the extreme left. That's their job, right? It's like, hey, if you're a socialist or a Marxist, like that's your deal. Not ours. Ours should be like, when I say ours, I'm lumping everybody into somewhat of the same bucket. I'm just saying, like, I had this conversation with somebody the other day. I was like, you can't just say that I'm for freedom here, but then you go to the buffet of rights. It's like, no, you're for either individual freedom and you don't get to pick and choose, because we were talking about abortion. That was the topic, because I was like, you're contradicting yourself. You're a conservative and you're about individual freedom and liberty, but you're also saying this should be illegal and we should mandate the federal government to do it. So at the same time, you're contradicting these two things.
People do it all the time with the Constitution.
They do. They're
love
like,
the first,
I
but
like
they hate
this
the
one,
second.
but I don't like this
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
I like this one. I don't
Yeah.
like this one. I'm like,
Or they want to strip the fifth away from some people, or some people shouldn't have a jury of their
Right.
peers. They should be just fucking lit on fire in the public square.
Yeah.
It's not a buffet. This is what we stand for. I get for all of it, or maybe we should not
Right.
stand for any of it.
well, and we were talking about that. I think Dan Crenshaw and Jared, we were having that conversation, I think, among us, because he was talking about, drugs. We were talking about drugs. We were talking some of the other things. I'm like, I can say that I don't find it ethically appropriate, right? So from my personal perspective, I'm completely against abortion from my personal perspective. That's my own personal belief.
Mhm.
So I can take that to my family and we can believe in that. And that's, but I'm not going to tell my neighbors.
Yeah, you're not going to mandate it.
And just like I'm not going to do that for like the drug conversation. That's what we were having a conversation about. It was like the legalization of marijuana across the United States. And I was like, that's a big win for individual liberty. It's a big win. You know why? Because you get to choose. Just like, psilocybin or half these other things that people don't get to choose and they don't have the option. And maybe it might help them. Maybe the THC or CBD or whatever it might be, maybe that does help you. And oh, by the way, who cares if people want to use it recreationally? I mean, they can go to the liquor store and buy, a shopping cart full of poison and, and kill themselves that night with a bottle of liquor. But you're also completely contradicting yourself and saying, well, but the Fed needs to step in and really control this. I'm like, not really. Like, I don't necessarily believe in that. So, and I'm not saying that people can't be hypocritical, because that's part of the human experience. Like, you're just going to be a hypocrite because your mind isn't diverse enough in order to stay within the lines of a very strict doctrinal, outline. It's just not possible, because it's a big fucking sphere of gray matter with a ton of folds, and you're going to have a bunch of different competing opinions, and you're never going to be able to just completely conform. That's why these things just don't work, because it's a human experience, right? It's very fucking diverse. But people aren't even capable of having a complex dialogue. They're not capable of it. I'm not saying they're not capable because they don't have the IQ. I think they're not capable of it because they don't feel that they will be socially accepted by a peer group if they don't conform strictly to an ideology.
I find they're very capable, but only in person.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The internet is just a shitty place to have those conversations. It's not designed around complexity and nuance. And it goes back to all the shit comments that I was looking at on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's just not my experience in the real world. Because when I sit down and I can and have had conversations with people that believe largely the opposite of what I believe, we don't scream at each other.
No.
We don't yell at each other. I'll ask questions like, oh, so, well, why do you feel that way? Or one of my favorite questions to ask people is, what information would it take to change your position on this? Or if this is what you believe, is there a threshold of information that could be provided that would sway your opinion? Because I think that's an important question for people to ask themselves about what they believe. Why do I believe what I believe? What's it based off of? And what actually would it take for me to change my opinion on something? I've never had one of those conversations online.
No.
But I have them, I'm not going to say all the time, but it's occurred quite a few times face to face. I think it's possible, but the mediums that we have available for speed, they suck.
They suck.
Yeah.
Well, you're distilling complex conversations down to a very simplistic form of communication that is not, it's also very new for even humanity.
That always ends in somebody saying, well, you're just a cuck, fuck you.
Yeah.
And then it's like, moving on to the next.
Moving on to the next idiot. Like, oh, okay. So
because you'll bump up against their ideology, and the response that I find most often is it then becomes that ad hominem attack, right? Like, fuck you. I'm like, oh,
yeah. Okay.
We've hit the gates. We've hit the walls at the castle. Moving on to the next.
Well, and some of that is like, I think it's driven specifically. And I had a conversation with a guy that used to do, and this was like last year, but he used to trace back the external or outside influences, specifically related to like Facebook, when all the Russia, interference stuff started coming out. Like, they went and did a very complex investigation as to how many people were out there interfering and putting out false information. Where was it coming from? And a lot of it was coming from outside of the United States. There were like, 19 out of 20 fake accounts directly associated with this. And I think Joe might have had somebody on the show talking about this as well.
You're talking about with Jocko.
Was he?
And it was, for whatever reason, they were Christian accounts, like church
yeah.
accounts.
And they were doing the same thing,
Yeah.
but they were talking about, you'd have like certain really hot topics that would really galvanize people. And you'd have all these different, Russian click farms or whatever, Pakistani click farm, filling in the comments, spinning people up. And that would really get, people activated. It really would. And that's some scary shit when you think about how people are being activated on social media across the United States and how they're being directly manipulated by our most strategic threats that really have something to gain. We have nothing to gain as a country by being divided. Like we have nothing. It is fucking lost. It is gone. We have everything to gain by being united, but who does? And that's where you have to really look at it. It's like, who gains from us being at each other's throats? Because it's not America, and it's not people that love this country. It's China, it's Russia, it's North Korea, it's fucking Iran, it's all of our strategic enemies. They gain. So of course they're going to exploit and explode any circumstance that they can, because they're directly benefiting from that circumstance. And for me, I'm like, how can you guys not see what's going on? Like I always want to go, can you not see? Like everybody has access to the internet. Anybody can make a stupid account. Anybody can do this anytime they want.
I think they need better information, which kind of ties back to your idea, which again goes back completely onto Evan's shoulder. So it's either up to you, Evan, or
Well, the interest, the positive side of social media that I've seen, and I was very surprised by this as I kind of evolved on my social media platforms, which sounds weird saying you're an influencer, but I think what I realized is a lot of people, especially young men in my case, and men period, they want mentorship. Mm-hmm. They want leadership.
Right.
They want to follow a role model who's leading them in the right direction, who's positive, who all these good things, these aspects, which is why I think all these people gravitate to Andy, myself, even you, and finding that where they go, what is this guy saying? Mm-hmm. What's this dude wearing? Like, I want to be like this guy. And so when you see that social impact in a positive way, you have to scale and evolve that. Like, it's a burden of responsibility that I want to go, oh, fuck, dude, I do not want to fuck with this. But when I look at the place that we're at, the only way to counter that negative interaction, like I tell people at these survival engagements at Black Rifle Coffees.
Yeah.
I just convinced 200 of you to show up through a post, like one post. And you all bought the ticket that's going to Warrior's Heart, $25 per slot, and convinced you here in a post to show up. What makes you think that I can't convince you to show up at a protest and burn the place to the ground? So we could use this for good or for evil. And so when I look at the scale of this, when you consolidate efforts, when you put capital behind it, when you're doing it for the right reasons, what you're doing is you're mentoring the country. And there's nobody like I love Ben Shapiro. Mm-hmm. I love some of these personalities, and their intellect is their benefactor, because they're super intellectual, they're super intelligent, they're distilling a lot of chaos into informative information, right? But when you take a guy like me, you, Andy, Jocko, and you look at the experience in their lives, what more validation can you get from somebody who's communicating anything? And if they're taking that leadership role, what they say is what you'll get. And so what I think is going to happen if this goes off the right way in the task organization is you're really influencing for the better. You have a guy like Andy who's talking about a show, who's giving information and inspiring people to get off their ass and do something about it. That's what we do in our podcast in a lot of ways. But when you consolidate the effort and you get serious about it, people go, where is the reliable voice that I'm willing to listen to and be influenced by in a discussion, not a pro tip, not a clickbait headline, but actual discussion? that changes the world, because 80% of the country's looking for that. I'm looking for it in my own way. So I listen to Andy's podcast. I listen to your interviews with people who are influential, and that's how I get it. But there's not one place that you can go where you can get that dynamic diversity. And I think you only get that from a veteran experience. And I don't want to isolate veterans here, but let's be fucking real. Like, what kind of life, like, you take a guy who's got an MBA, you take a guy who has who's a shark and has done business. Like, you take that narrow experience, and it's a thing. It should be beneficial. But when you take the overall scope of somebody's experiences and an operational capacity, fighting the GWAT for 20 fucking years, transitioning that into business or whatever it is, leadership, that is a whole completely different type of experience. And I'm not inspired by the business guys, by the philosophers, I'm inspired by the guys who have this realm of experience and they could distill this information for me. I mean, like Andy Stumpf. He won't say this, but like a career Navy dude, enlisted dude, an officer, a pilot, a wingsuit flyer, a base jumper, like a entrepreneur, a jiu-jitsu guy, like
handsome
dude. And you take
Incredibly
that,
handsome.
like, that's the fucking guy I want to listen to. That's the guy I want my son to listen to.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference, because I think there's a lot of people that would say, we'll use Andy in a very, because he's at the table, we'll use him in this circumstance, which there's a lot of people that would say, because you've exemplified what it's like to live life in the context of you've tried to do multiple things and been successful at achieving your goals and objectives. I think people, if they're living life without goals and objectives, then they're searching for some type of leadership and they need experience-based knowledge, not theory.
Yes.
It's not theory.
Yeah.
And the difference is it's huge. There's miles of difference between a person that's talking about accomplishing goals based on theory and accomplishing goals based on experience. And so that's where from my experience, at least, like, I'm looking at those guys, to include the guys that I knew within, our former lives as, a special operations guy or a CIA guy or whatever. I was always looking at the guys I wanted to follow were the guys that had the experience. Or like, when you looked at a guy, when you first came in, you first came into the mill, it was like, there's only a few guys that had been in combat, and you saw who it was because you could see it on their uniform. Like, that guy's a CIB. Some of those guys had like mustard stains on their, jump lanes. It was like, that guy was in Panama. That guy is a CIB. I want to learn how to conduct warfare with that guy, not the other guy. Like, that's the guy, because he's validated that this experience-based knowledge, which ultimately equates to wisdom, which I think you should talk about this a little bit, where, you have to have intelligence, right? There's like the pillars of wisdom from my perspective, where like, you have to be intelligent. You have to have some formal education in the subject. You have to have experience, and then you have to have the means in order to communicate all of that. So it's like intelligence, education, experience, and communication. It's the 4 legs to the stool of wisdom. You don't go to the guy that just has an education, they have a low IQ, they have no experience, and they can't fucking communicate it. It doesn't make any sense. You're like, who the fuck is this? There's no way I want to listen to this person. It doesn't make sense. So I think having that, our background, that's who we used to always go to. Like, you don't want to learn how to gunfight from a guy that's only been doing it theoretical. We saw that guy. He was in Maryland, right? He was running a dojo before he started teaching, like, Wang Chung, dude, that guy doesn't know shit about surviving a gunfight. Like, where I want to go to learn how to survive a gunfight is from the guys that have actually survived gunfights. And then you're like, oh, and then it dawns on you. You're like, that makes a ton of sense. Think about all the shit that you had, like, light bulbs go on where it was theory-based tactics. And then you applied those theory-based tactics and it all turned to shit. Mm-hmm. It didn't make any sense. I'll tell you exactly one. One, for instance, was that SOP that we used to always use was opposing corner 4-man CQB. Mm-hmm. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. It might work or might have worked in certain circumstances, but the first time you run a live target and you try to do opposing corner, 4-man CQB on
Full
a
kit.
3-room fucking multi-level, target with furniture and fucking kids and everything else in it, it is a shit show because you're like, number 2 takes 2. You remember that bullshit? Everybody remember this? Like the 2-man takes 2 corners. Well, the first time you run into a couch and a lamp and everything else, and then there's like beds and people sleeping all around, you fucking get caught up in blankets. You're like, I can't get to the other side of that room.
Let alone maybe you only have 6 guys on target.
Yeah.
How the fuck are you supposed to clear it? 4 men per room.
4 men per room.
Yeah.
2 takes 2. If you would have tried to follow that template, not modify your tactics and techniques in order to be successful on the target, we would have fucking been like getting our just smashed on a regular. Like there's no way. So then when you had to modify your tactics and techniques based on your experience, and you realize that theory didn't fucking work, but you still had to understand the principles of combat, speed, surprise, violence of action. You had to fucking understand all that. You had to be able to like digest it and then create and curate tactics that actually worked based on the circumstance.
And then I found that when the people with the real world experience were coming back, some of those that would push back the hardest against a change in that theory were the ones who used to be teaching it but had no real world experience to back it up.
They would.
Because it was a threat. I guess it was a threat to their knowledge base, but it was a knowledge base that wasn't earned through experience. But they would dig in and bury their flag in the old tactics. Like, hey man, like this shit is not what we're seeing for real. So we need to change it. And they would oftentimes not want to initially.
A ton of guys.
Until the fucking tsunami of feedback and information, they had no choice.
Yeah, I mean, like borderline fistfights on a regular.
For sure.
Like people getting so mad over tactics where you're like, I remember having like this fucking almost like come to blows with a guy in the middle of some training facility somewhere where he was telling me that prone doesn't work anymore. And I was like, you're fucking high as a kite, man. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You're just being lazy. Prone, as long as projectiles have been flying around in the fucking sky, like having a low profile will work in some circumstances, depending on, like, you can't just eliminate that from your tool chest. That's fucking ridiculous. Like, what are you, crazy? And I was like, so pissed off. He's like, yeah, prone doesn't work. And I was like, what planet are you fucking working on, man?
He's from the planet where he's never actually had incoming projectiles at 1,000 feet per second.
Yeah.
And what,
Snapping by your
I really need to get low.
Snapping by your head, and all you have to hide behind is a rock about the size of your fucking head. And you hide behind it on your belly.
On your belly.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be standing. Like
serpentine.
You're not going to be standing. Like you're just not. Like I remember that clean as day. I was wearing a fucking ball cap. Started the invasion with a ball cap.
Ballistic?
No, it was a foam. It was a white foam trucker with a fucking pink hand, loose hand.
Oh.
Started that because I was like, it's a fucking cakewalk, man. Like I'm a fuck. Yeah, they didn't last very long.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to put a helmet on. Like,
Can I get side plates for my
can I
shit?
get side plates? Do we have any more armor I can maybe duct tape to
Those
myself?
blankets,
Can we
armored
put
blankets.
can we put something
Going
else?
back through historical images of like knights. Like, can we make that out of Kevlar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, I mean, no time in history has kind of guys and gals with our experience come out and been so transparent, right? Which has been like, people are like, oh my God, these guys are coming out of the shadows and telling all the secrets. Like, no, that's not happening.
Really?
Oh, these are quiet professionals and they run their mouth. No, I wouldn't put it that way. So when you take like a Wolf Blitzer or a Don Lemon, they're talking heads, right? They just run their fucking mouths. And they don't expose all their weaknesses because they're not willing to have that conversation. But when you do a podcast, when you do this kind of interaction, it's long form, you can't hide. Like if you're asked the right questions and you just can't hide. That's why I think Rogan's popularity has to do with this transparency and honesty that people really want versus the clickbait puppeteer who's like, what the fuck is going on? Yeah. Like a corporate structure owns this entity and there's talking heads and this dude's making $5 million a year running this fucking mouth off a teleprompter. Like people are done with that shit. I'm glad to see that if it wasn't for social media, where for the first time people can't hide, then you wouldn't have these long form conversations. Even though it's blitzed with all this temporary shit, there is value in this long form discussion of the podcast, the interactions on social. And I love that, because now when people are looking, when that young man who's like, I want to go to Ranger Regiment, I want to be a Navy SEAL, when they come out and they go, who am I going to pay attention to? This dickbag who's talking about his Lambos, his Ferraris, and how badass he is. This athlete who is running his, I mean, LeBron James is who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And or am I going to pay attention to this, I don't know, this person who has humility, who gives a shit about people, who has a world of experiences and trauma and war and service and entrepreneurship, where I'm like, yeah, maybe I want to be like that guy. Maybe this aspiration of being a conceited fucking ball player who gets paid millions of dollars playing a fucking game. Maybe I want to be like that guy. And there's nobody doing that right, because their reference for experiences is, no offense to Ivy League education, but it's the professor, like you said, who's talking from a position of theory, but has never really fucking lived it. I'm going to teach you guys the MBA and teach you how to run a business, but you've never really run a successful business. So how the fuck are you here? And there are exceptions to that, obviously. But when you take that,
they're the exception.
They're the exception, not the rule. When you have the vertical, the rungs that are part of this ladder, and everybody pulls to that, I think it changes. I think it changes our position in the U.S. for the world, because we're so disaffected, we're so divisive, and then what you do see is when everybody turns off all the social media platforms because they don't want to incite or get the vote, you have a pool of people who are paying attention, who are getting informed, who are like, I don't need to pay attention to these fucking rogue actors. I can get education here, and then I could vote for the right person. Or maybe the people who are involved in it are the right people. Maybe my thing is, like, I like DeSantis, Tulsi, and Jocko. I think those three personally, on any ticket in any combination, would be the right ticket because of who they are and their experiences. Nothing to do with based on their fucking education, but based off of what they've done in the real world, their action, not their words. No pressure. No fucking pressure, guys.
No pressure.
It's on you.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I think I think America has to look at itself as a leader, right? And they need to assume responsibility of leadership across the world. And because everybody's looking at America, like whether or not people want to buy into that perception, it is reality.
Yeah.
It is reality.
Yeah.
So the more that they look at this country as we are leaders of the world, not just the free world, the world.
Yes.
And so when we elect these, like this, lobotomized fucking, geriatric,
dude, he's dead.
To lead. Like, he's not possible.
He's fucking
just
dead.
not possible. And it's not me getting into some weird political thing, but it's like, we should be ashamed of ourselves for even moving this person through the primaries and then allowing them to lead. That is a disservice to the position and to the country and to where we have to be, I think, as a global leader. And out of all the 1.5 million people that have served in the United States military over the course of the last 20 years, and then more if we go even further, it's like that's the last place in America that they're really emphasizing leadership as a skill too. Like they're actually teaching it as a skill. Military is like one of the last places. So the more woke the mill becomes, actually, some of this I'm like, whatever, but you can't lose the ability to teach leadership, teach principles, and understand what it means in order to self-sacrifice for the greater good, for not only the greater good of the humanity, but the greater good of the country and the greater good of the platoon or the company or whatever it might be. It's like we're doing an extreme disservice to the emphasis of leadership. And when we don't value that and really curate it and promote it as something that actually belongs in our society, we fuck ourselves. And that's where this participation trophy bullshit doesn't work, because it's contradictory to human behavior. It's completely contradictory to human behavior. We think about like thousands of years of human evolution, if you believe in that.
Yeah.
There was tribal elders and chiefs. There's always been either a collective identification of the person that quite possibly could lead, and then definable capabilities that allow them to be put into that position. But it's contradictory to human behavior to say that everybody's the same. We're not. Like, it's just not factual.
Yeah.
And everybody is not built for that either. And it doesn't, like, from my perspective, it's like there are some guys that are really fucking great natural. We know them. I mean, they're very good. And then they've refined that through experience and education. You think about guys out there that have spent their lives studying and then living it through experience. Like, we should be taking those people and putting them on a special island somewhere going, good God, you guys, we have to protect and nourish your knowledge regarding this skill because it is so paramount to the survival of our society. And I think more so as the country, it has to continue to evolve. But when you look at it, it's devoid of leadership. Like, it's devoid, like, because there is no moral or ethical boundaries. It's like just about hyperbole and clicks and, views and about, posturing with wealth or whatever it might be. It's not about like this person and whether people like him or not. But Mattis is a good example where he was a intellectual. He is a intellectual in the art of not only warfare, but leadership. And that, from what I understand of the guy, he would read, like, he's read thousands of books.
Yeah.
On just leadership and history and warfare. He's a true historian and intellectual in the capacity of warfare and leadership. And regardless of, we'll call it, political views or what the person has done, you should still value the brain matter that guy's been spilling out. Einstein wasn't right about everything, but he's celebrated as the most, the most iconic intellectual in history, but he wasn't right 100% of the time. So it's like, man, the expectation of the purity police is that you're going to be right 100% of the time, and if you're not, then fuck you, you're wrong all the way around. It's like, oh, that's complete horseshit. We should transition into this Duke Cannon thing, though.
I mean, one of us came prepared, Mike.
I got a medium. It was too small. I couldn't put it on.
Bullshit. Okay. We're going to have a friendly competition.
On what? What are you guys going to compete in?
We're actually just competing to see who can give back more money to the charity of our choice, essentially. I mean,
that's what I love about it.
It's a win-win, right? So Duke Cannon, interestingly enough, so they reached out to me. My kids actually love their stuff. And for people who, I would do a shitty job of describing what Duke Cannon is. They make what I'm going to call grooming supplies.
Sure.
Somehow
I use their soap.
Yeah.
Somehow I feel when you say grooming supplies, you're talking about pets, though. Is there a different term for humans?
I think you can use it.
It's like balm and like hygiene. It's not hygiene. It's like
I'm going to say men's grooming supplies.
high-end
It's
grooming supplies.
It's a bunch of military guys trying to determine what this actually means through words. We need to come up with like an acronym.
Here's what I did last year.
MGS. Men's grooming supplies.
Yeah. I have two sons who are now 18 and 16. Their stockings last year were full of soap because they fucking stink. They're savages and they have an allergic reaction to like showering and taking a bath sometimes.
Yeah.
But so like soaps, deodorants, stuff like that. So I actually was very familiar with the product, and they did a few ad reads on the podcast this year. So they reached out and the guy was like, hey, do you want to be involved in a contest that literally has nothing to do with me really doing anything? It's all based around the Army-Navy football game. If the Army wins, Mike's charity of choice gets $100,000 and my charity of choice will still get $25,000. If the Navy wins, which they will, and I actually had to research this, in the history of the Army-Navy game, the Army's actually never won.
Shut up. Are you serious?
No, I have no idea how many times they've won, but I'm going to say things like that.
That's complete bullshit. I was like, what are you talking about?
The fact that you bid on that is amazing.
I know nothing about sports, but I know that's complete bullshit.
Oh, man. You could.
So I would get $100,000 I'm not actually going to touch the money. It's going to go directly to a charity, and then your charity would get $25,000. They're calling it the wager.
Yes.
This will come out Monday. So when people are listening to this, it will be Monday. For the rest of the week, we're going to talk shit on each other online to try to get people involved.
I love that.
But it's a win-win because
it's a win-win.
Even if I lose, I'm still going to direct $25,000 towards the Navy SEAL Foundation. If Mike wins, he's going to direct $100,000 towards your ridiculous BRCC fund. I mean, that's fine.
Beer fund.
People should really look into how that money's spent. It's an amazing charity. But either way, two charities are going to get donations based around a college football game, which is actually what the Army Navy game is. We were discussing this downstairs. It's not some crazy shit. They're just midshipmen, or what do you guys call them in the Army?
Yeah.
They're midshipmen as well?
Cadets.
Cadets and
That's what it
midshipmen.
is.
The Navy is midshipmen, Annapolis.
Right. Does that mean like you're midship? You're not like
I have been to Annapolis 0 times. I have
Good.
no idea what any of their terminology means.
solid.
So
wait, so the Army
midshipmen.
team is cadets.
Mhm.
Because they're all West Point guys.
Yeah, it's West Point versus Annapolis.
Oh, I'm a dummy. I thought there was an Army pro team
Really?
of like dudes that I
Are
didn't
you out
realize.
of your fucking mind?
Dude, I don't even know. Like, I'm not I stopped watching football when the last time Joe Montana threw the Jerry Rice. When Jerry Rice hung it up, I'm like, I'm out. Peace out. Like,
All right,
Joe
that's
Montana
about
was
right.
the man. That
Yeah, that's
was when
about
football
right.
was
That's
cool.
about
So
when
the
that's about when I stopped watching it
Yeah,
too. Like
yeah.
that was about the
For
right.
clarity, everybody, the non-professional Army team will be playing the non-professional Navy team. For those of you who stopped watching,
So it's
football.
college. It's college football.
College football.
football.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Duke can't, like the idea, like number one.
It was their idea. You recommended that they get Jocko instead. I thought he was
Dude,
serious.
oh my God. Let me tell you this. But you want to feel like a pile of shit. So Duke Cannon, he CCs me on Duke Cannon's conversation where they're like, hey, you want to be part of this? And I, trying to be a sarcastic asshole, not understanding the gaps of communication in written form, I type an email. I'm like, I know he's on it. So he's CC'd. Hey, are you sure you guys, like, I understood why you chose
Are you sure
me.
you guys want to use Andy?
But why do you-
I legitimately think that we could get Jocko. So I responded.
That's a good point.
I took it as a good point. I responded. I'm like, hey, I'll fucking bow out. Like his platform is multiples the size of mine. Like I don't give a shit. I just want to get money into the right
He
hand.
texted me.
And then I go mule deer hunting. So I'm off the grid for like 18 hours. But right before I lose cell coverage, I text Mike. I'm like, hey man, if you guys want to go with Jocko, just let me know. And then
Dude, I like texted like 100. I was like a chick. I was like, bro, you know I'm joking. Hello? Has anybody thumbs up
I had no
emoji?
cell coverage.
Like what's up? And then he gets back. I'm like, dude, I was totally joking. And then I got on the email and I felt like I walked into a room where like the joke's on me. I'm like, hey, everybody's cool, right? Because the dudes are like, oh no, we want to go with Andy, and I'm like, no, I was fucking joking. I'm sending the emojis like, hey, I was all fucked up, man,
Dude.
It was all fucked up. I felt like shit. I felt like dog shit after that. But I think it's cool that like a company, like most companies, including all three of us, have given back in some way.
Yep.
You obviously on a big scale. Like we've been part of some of those things. Warriors Heart is what
Everybody.
we're giving back to as well for every BRCC engagement that Fieldcraft's involved in, and these companies get an allocation typically where they go, hey, let's take a part of our proceeds of profit or part of our profit and proceeds and donate it to something that's a good cause. I think it's just cool that they thought about us because I want to give back, but it's a small amount when I look at potentially being able to affect, whether it's BRCC Fund or Save Our Allies or Mighty Oaks Foundation or Warriors Heart, these companies that are these nonprofits that I work with and see where the money goes. It's a big freaking deal, man.
Yeah, it's huge.
Big
It's
deal.
huge. It's a huge deal.
And
So
they
thank
ask
you for
and
that.
the ask for us is super small. Try to
Yeah.
drive awareness and attention towards it. And it's win-win.
Yeah, it's a win-win. I love
But-
that. Yeah.
This stuff's always a win-win. Like it really is.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the reasons why because we were giving away hundreds of thousands of dollars and to the right causes. And I was like, we just need to pivot this in the context of, because we get thousands of emails, where should I donate? What should I do? So it's like, well, let's just pay for all the compensation for the guys that actually run the fund. So 100% of the proceeds go back to veteran-related causes. Like we've been giving $5,000 a week to veteran small businesses or small businesses that help veterans. So it can be either one.
Which that's not the normal model for nonprofits, by the way, because most nonprofits have overhead.
They do, yeah. And a lot of them are really well run. They'll have like 90% of it goes back, but our commitment's always been 100%. So we always pay, travel and compensation, everything for anybody running it, and then that way, 100% of the proceeds go back to a lot of these different initiatives that we're trying to do. Then we'll team up with other nonprofits and fund different initiatives. And we've been able to do a ton of really, really good stuff. We funded a research project with Hunter 7 on, chemical exposure and
It's a
the
big deal,
high rate
man.
of cancer.
Scares
The
shit out of me.
early data coming out on that is guys like us are about 2.5 times more likely to develop cancer than a person that hasn't deployed.
It scares the shit out of me.
And so
Yeah, it kind of does.
it's one of the I think it's probably one of the leading issues that we're going to face from a generational perspective. It's our Agent Orange, right? It's going to be our Agent Orange. So it's one of the things I've been really trying to focus a lot of attention on. Obviously, we've done a ton of stuff with like adaptive athlete shoots and getting people out and active. But the other piece is going to be long-term health and chemical exposure from whatever reason. And a lot of us have lived from the outside, we look really good, right? I mean, I'm not saying like hot. I'm saying like we look like healthy people. But when you look at the issues that we've encountered in our adult lives,
trash pits, biochem sites, like,
or just the residual of the chemical. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure both of you still remember what a Carl Gustav smells like.
Yeah,
Smells great.
combustion.
Time fuse. Like, if I've actually had this conversation with people, like, you're sitting in a movie theater and you smell what you think is time fuse. What do you do? Guys, it's so fucking unique.
Yeah.
Or C4. Or what
Yeah.
a grenade
C4.
smells like.
C4.
Or brass. Or a kill house. The metallic taste that coats your mouth in a kill house.
Well, I didn't think about that. Think about how many times like we were sitting. It could be as easy as like a solvent tank,
Oh, God,
like
yes.
scrubbing carbon
Yeah.
with
bare hands.
dip in Copenhagen.
brass with
Yeah, scraping and then putting it back on your head.
Mhm.
And like, hey, we're going to go down and work in a shoot house for a week, and we're going to do a bunch of live breaching, and we're going to do a bunch of other bullshit in it. And how many times were you guys wearing pro masks when you were doing all that shit? It's fucking
Every time.
boom, fucking
Yeah.
dust and everything is in the air, and you're fucking moving through it, and there's
We always
everything
trained
else.
We had N95 masks.
Constantly.
Safety first.
Yeah.
You did really?
Every run.
You're bullshit. Yeah.
It's not rockets to see.
No, I
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
saw one ever.
Well, and then think about even exterior breaching and interior breaching, even on compounds that we were in. Like, what the fuck?
Well, it goes beyond that too. Look how we got there. The chemicals involved with the helicopters, the hydraulic fluid, the exhaust,
Dude,
all of that stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy.
we need to get tested. Like that's the one thing, like the silent killer. Like you go through all this shit, these world experiences where you survive and you get taken out by a fucking cancer or something dumb.
Dick Meadows, you know who that is.
Yeah.
So, Dick Meadows died of cancer in the 70s. And Dick Meadows is like an icon of SF history. He's an incredible human being. There's a great book out there about Dick Meadows. If you guys want to pick it up. But
It's a recent too. It's a recent book, right? A couple
10
years.
years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I picked it up like 10 years right when it came
Yeah.
out.
He was still alive at that point.
No,
Or did
he
he just
died.
pass away?
He died like back in the 70s, dude.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Oh,
And he
I did not
died
know
of
that.
cancer because of Agent Orange.
Dude.
And Dick Meadows was like the poster boy SF guy.
Yeah.
The bronze statue, I think, in Swick might be it might be of Dick Meadows. But this guy, like, he lived an incredible life, but in the last several years, he was testifying in front of Congress and going to war basically with the United States government over Agent Orange. And a lot of people in the SF community specifically don't realize that, one, Dick died of cancer at a very young age, and two, he was like holding people to task like every day for the last several years of his life until the day that he fucking died about Agent Orange and cancer and the chemical exposures to soldiers in Vietnam. It's something that people don't realize about Audie Murphy. Like, Audie Murphy was admittedly had PTS. Admittedly, he was self-medicating, and he was talking about shell shock back then. He was one of the only people talking about shell shock, and people don't realize that either. So
Yeah.
these like iconic military individuals that have talked about these things at depth and length, and they still are kind of forgotten pieces of history. Well, congratulations on the competition. We'll have to see what are you guys competing at? Do you know?
Who wins? There's
That's
no
it. I thought you guys were going to
Yeah.
do a secondary
I
competition.
thought so too. But now it's like
We can. What do you want
That's
to do?
easy.
I was
We'll
thinking,
do a daily online competition. What do you want to do?
ooh,
That could be anything. That'd be awesome.
it could be.
Yeah.
What I like is the field day throwback. because in field day I have a whole bunch of ribbons from kindergarten where I was
Right.
beating some ass.
Yeah.
The free throw, second place. The spoon run with the egg, first place. Potato sack race.
Oh, yeah.
I'll fuck you up on all that.
Yeah.
What do you think so?
Oh, I know so. I'm a superior athlete.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Often wrong, never in
That's
doubt.
debatable.
Often wrong, never doubt is in the notes, and it will produce in a variety of patches, all sorts of shit. We should wrap this up.
Thank you,
because we
guys.
still gotta-
I appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.